Hello and welcome to Red Shirt Cinema Club, a weekly podcast about fandom and watching things with friends. Today we complete our trilogy of self-indulgence, fresh from watching The Return of the King. So prepare for cutting insight and commentary on all your favourite bits, constant talk about the extended editions we didn't watch, and lots of us quoting our favourite lines. Because after all, why not?
The eye of the enemy is moving.
The end has come.
Every day, Frodo moves closer to Mordor. How do we know Frodo is alive? What does your heart tell you?
Come, Master. Come to Smeagol. This is your test. Every path you have trod through wilderness, through war, has led to this road.
The enemy will never let Aragorn come to the throne of Gondor.
It is time. Give him the sword of the king.
Become who you were born to be.
The precious will be ours.
He means to murder us! Never! I'm not sending him away. Come, Smeagol.
Order set. The pieces are moving.
He is here.
We come to it at last.
I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of man fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Whatever happens, stay with me.
This day, we fight!
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
We shall see the Shire again.
You gave away your life's grace. I cannot protect you anymore.
We cannot achieve victory through strength of arms.
Not for ourselves.
But we can give Frodo a chance.
Hello and welcome to Red Shirt Cinema Club. I am your host, decrepit undead soldier, who really shouldn't be doing this anymore, Rob Pearson. And I'm joined by burning madman, Nathan Dighton.
I'll take that, that's great.
And oblivious hobbit who's still sweeping his garden after all this time,
Oh, for God's sake.
David Jackson.
Not even Samwise.
I thought he might be the guy with the big shiny pumpkin.
Yeah, a good pumpkin, to be fair.
We've just finished The Return of the King, the third and final film in Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy. And we are probably about to take almost as long as that film's considerable runtime talking about it. I can see Nathan's got his books.
Got different books this
ready.
time.
But before we dive into the main discussion, I just want to address the Oliphant in the room, which is the mailbag. We keep meaning to do the mailbag in these episodes, but we have been talking about the films for too long. So instead, what we've decided to do is an entire mailbag special, a mailbag episode next Monday. You could almost call it like the appendices.
You could.
Which we will.
Yes.
We'll call it the appendices. Next Monday's episode will be all about you and your messages. So please do keep sending them in. That'll be before we dive into the Hobbit movies the week after. So please do keep sending your messages to redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com. But let's get on to the film.
Yeah. We've had some good mailbag, by the way, but keep them coming.
we are going to do what we've been doing for the previous 2 mainline episodes, which is to just take the film bit by bit. And there are lots of bits in this.
Yes.
Which is sort of what I realised to my delight when rewatching it yesterday. Just constantly I was like, oh, it's about to be that bit. Oh, I love that bit. It's just a sequence of bits I love, this film.
And we should say, because I think we had you and I especially, Rob, maybe had a slightly different experience of the Two Towers than we had in the past. And I did again, but I liked Return of the King more than I think I ever have in the past, which is nice. 'Cause I was a bit sad that the Two Towers had always been my favourite, and then I
felt the same, actually. I mean, I felt the same about the Two Towers as well. I definitely was my least favourite time I've watched it, and this was my most favourite time watching Return of the King, which is a movie I've always felt was like a bit of a standout in the wrong way from the trilogy.
Yeah,
and I didn't feel like that this time. No. I think it's always I've always clung to this memory of going to see it at the midnight showing, and I was just so tired by the end. I think that has hampered it somewhat in my memory, and it's the one I'm the least familiar with as well. It's the one I've not watched it as much as the others.
I think I probably, because it's just the third one, I think that's probably true of me as well.
Yeah, it used to be my favourite. I remember when I first came out of the cinema, I saw this movie 4 times at the cinema.
Nice.
When I first came out, I was like, that's the best movie I've ever seen. And it stayed like that for a very long time. And then The Fellowship became my favourite. And then I sort of solidified into thinking The Two Towers was my favourite.
Yeah.
Now I think this might be my favourite again. It's just so good. It's just so many absolute banging scenes.
I really thought that this was the Return of the Jedi. Like it's not actually that good. Do you know what? And I was always worried about it. And I was always bothered in something in particular right at the end of the film. And this time, just less so. And the payoffs really land. And there's bits in it which I just love all the more.
Yes.
So I'm really glad we've rewatched it.
So am I. Me too, as Gandalf would say.
Me too.
Let's start just with the opening then, because the first 2 films, we've got like a really big, epic fight at the beginning. Peter Jackson obviously thinking, how can we settle the audience in for this big, long, epic 3-hour film? Let's just do a big fight right at the beginning. Whereas this time, we get that Gollum preview scene. We get to see Smeagol's descent into, and his transformation into Gollum,
to Gollumhood,
which I like it a lot. I like how his voice isn't part of the transformation.
That's what I was
going to say. Sounds like that all the time. When he was fine.
That's the only thing I didn't like about it. Also, I wish he'd just not been like I would have hated Smeagol anyway. He was a horrible little thing.
Yeah.
I wish he'd been as sort of clean as hobbits. I wish he'd just been like a regular person. I think it would have accentuated his fall rather. But apart from that, I really enjoyed the scene. And actually what it made me think was the scope of the films enables a pocket of storytelling like that. I wonder how long it was planned for. Obviously not when there were only 2 movies probably. And to start a film with it doesn't really belong anywhere else. But it's kind of like, oh, we've been away. And in the meantime, here's a little thing. It's such an interesting space to have in a series of films like that.
I think they, from what I remember of the appendices, that's the first mention of the appendices, was that because Andy Serkis's performance had been so good in The Two Towers, Peter Jackson felt almost obliged to give Andy Serkis himself a little bit of screen time.
Oh, fair.
And so this was the perfect way to do it, I think. And I really enjoy his little innocent face as he threads the worm onto the fishing hook.
Yeah.
And you do get a little bit of him being like a nice, the concern for Deagle when Deagle falls overboard. Deagle! He's upset about it.
That's it. I mean, yeah. I didn't love this scene, to be honest, and it took me a few minutes to get into the movie. I think it's an interesting thing to explore. I really like his descent. That part of it, when he once he's got the ring, and then we see him over the years just
he's really bouncy
Gollum.
In that one scene where he kind of goes to the cave face. I've always thought, wow, Andy Serkis is really bouncy.
I love his horrible, big sort of, like when he's wearing a lot of prosthetics. When he's not at all CGI yet. Gollum, that one with the big sort of like crater faced.
I was eating a pork
eyes.
pie while we were watching this, and as he bites into the fish, I had like the jelly from the pie. I was
Yeah,
like,
the fish is horrible.
Oh, it really put me off.
I always wonder, like, is that a real fish? I'm always looking at it. I think it is. I don't know.
No.
Soft.
But I don't
Like
love
a big hairy bow.
I don't love
They'll have
Smeagol and
used.
Deagle. I don't think you get really much of a sense of them.
You don't get
And-
much of their nobility. You know what I
No,
mean?
and I actually, I did think I just sort of giggled a little bit to myself at the underwater scene of Deagle, in as much as I felt that, and there are some moments in this film where I do feel like, for the first time in the trilogy, the effects couldn't quite keep up with the ambition, and some stuff as well, like not even big. There's incredible big moments in this which look fantastic, but there are some smaller things where I feel like they maybe like just didn't have the time to completely nail them. And this is one of those things. Him being dragged under the water by the
I felt like
rod
that was more of a choice.
looks kind of silly to me.
In line with how they're a little in the line of Merry and Pippin in the first film, Deagle and Smeagol, and that shot, I think it's one of the times where I can't remember what animation it's from. I think it's maybe from The Hobbit, like the Rankin and Bass one that we mentioned before. So not Ralph Bakshi's one, but there is a shot which is almost exactly the same, and people have said Peter Jackson has taken another thing from one of the old animations. So I wonder if that had anything to do with it. But for me, I like the effects don't bother me, but the decisions and the tone of it bother me. And I guess it's funny, isn't it? Because you kind of, it's a little, I think that maybe in my head that's why it's a little bit like Return of the Jedi. You see some of those things creeping in, like Ewoks. Are you sure though? And then the prequel trilogy is all Ewoks, and this is kind of like Smeagol. Are you sure? And then the Hobbit trilogy is all Smeagol.
I do think that the death of Deagle is one of the most horrible things in the trilogy.
It's a good
because
murder.
it's everything else. These are fantasy movies, and it's fantasy. Everything else is very fantasy. You see lots of swords swinging and people just falling over, and it's all quite heroic and whatever. This is obviously just a really horrible, up close, very visceral attack on his friend, I assume. But like it's really quite horrible in a good way, in a way that it needs to be, and it is a good way to start the movie. I think in that way is like setting the tone.
I love Andy Serkis's look when he first sees the ring.
Yeah,
It's so good, so slow, just that dawning. I'm in love with this now.
This is it.
Just knowing that's the first moment Gollum ever lays eyes on the ring, and it's already taken him.
Yeah,
within.
that's it.
I'm going to make this
10
my whole
seconds of him
personality.
seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's so happy when he gets it. He's just killed his friend, and his face, that face he does when he holds it for the first time.
Zero regrets. Zero regrets.
That was worth
I love this so much.
I'm just going to put Deagle in the river. This is what a morning's work.
Unnoticed kill. So yes, we then cut from prequel Gollum to movie Gollum. Frodo and Sam are asleep. They're heading to Mordor. I felt like the movie then, there's maybe 20 minutes or so where it just introduces everyone again. It's a little bit slow to get along. There's obviously the really big decision to cut Saruman's scene out of the theatrical cut that we watched last night, which I think this is the first time I watched this whilst I was on a plane a couple of years ago going to LA. But usually when I rewatch this, I always rewatch the extended edition just because I like the Saruman scene.
I watched it on YouTube during the week, so it was very fresh in my mind.
I've forgotten what the Saruman scene is.
It's just at the beginning when they go back to Orthanc and Treebeard says to Gandalf, "I have a wizard to manage here." And he just appears on the top of his tower, has a little conversation with the lads down below, and then Grima stabs him in the back, and he falls off the tower, and he lands impaled on the water wheel right at the bottom.
I've forgotten all of that. Yeah, I do think it was a big omission, and it just feels a little bit silly in the theatrical cut that we don't even see Saruman. He's just in his tower. He's not coming out. You've got to guard him.
Both ways are not completely satisfying, I think, if you are familiar with the material. And I've taken a vow of not saying that for me this time, but as people trying to adapt the script, they've taken the scene from the end of book 3 or book 6, or The Return of the King, where in the Shire, which I kind of talked about last time, and they put it on top of Orthanc at the beginning, and that doesn't really solve the problems. So I like the logic of just because you don't see it didn't happen. They go back to the Shire, and the Shire is actually really nice. So I guess that really didn't happen. But in a way, I can see them saying, well, we're not going to do it. It doesn't mean that he doesn't go off and do a very similar version of those things in our films. But it is also quite silly. Although I remember from the time that Christopher Lee was very upset about it.
Yeah. Well, he feels like it's been a big part of the movies, I think. Big enough that I feel like we need a little bit of a better sort of end for him.
We should have just had one shot of him taking a rock to the face.
There's a great clip of him, I think, at the premiere with Peter Jackson, where he's standing next to Peter Jackson with his arm around him, literally saying to the camera, "And I don't know why they cut it, and I was very hurt by it." Peter Jackson's going, "Ha ha ha! It's going to be in the extended edition." Christopher Lee, the extended edition, yeah,
with all the extra bits.
I think it makes sense, actually. I'm not a particularly big fan of the scene. Also mainly because just of I think it was the right decision not to do the scouring of the Shire at the end.
Same.
In the film. It would have been ridiculous. A ridiculous anticlimax. I don't like it in the book. I think it's silly. But to have someone of Christopher Lee's stature and of, Saruman's importance brought back into the film, and then it makes sense when you watch the whole thing as a trilogy, I guess. It's Saruman's end. Or maybe they should have found a way to stick that scene at the end of the Two Towers. That's Saruman's end there.
Yeah.
But to introduce him and then kill him like a minute in to him being on screen
pacing-wise
is strange and anticlimactic. And I actually think the movie works better when they're just like, well, we don't need to worry about Saruman anymore. He's in there. He's not coming out. We don't need to worry about him.
I think it's the lesser evil.
It is the lesser evil.
It is a bit evil.
I like the dismissiveness of Gandalf. There's no power anymore.
Yeah.
But then the big thing in this scene becomes Pippin's discovery of the palantir, which is falling in the water, and he picks it up. What is it about anything to do with Sauron that people just can't resist?
Shiny.
So evil, but I just got to look.
Yeah.
Just got to look at him. Oh, his eye, this ball thing that he can...
I guess you go back to it, and because I was a bit like that, and especially because there's a grammar to the film when it's showing that, where it's kind of slightly too harsh telling off Pippin, and Pippin's like, "No, what are you doing?" And then there's just a couple of looks afterwards where Pippin's like, "Yeah." And
Gandalf's like, "I know you want to look at that, don't you, Pippin?" Yeah, Pippin, "Yeah, I do. I'm going to have a look at it later when you're asleep."
So you know what's going to happen. And for me, I guess it's like these unworldly people from the Shire are looking at things they're experiencing the world. I just want to have a look at it. So I excuse it on that basis. They're just inquisitive hobbits.
I mean, it's a nice looking thing.
It is.
And also it must, its power must be kind of like the ring. Like you must make people want to look in it. Otherwise it wouldn't work.
It's not supposed to be evil.
No, I suppose not.
Palantirs were just like the
It's
mobile...
just the fact that Sauron can use them, I guess, to look at you and to communicate with you and to...
Yeah.
Was it just that he's got one too? Is that how it works?
Yeah, Sauron.
He's got his.
Basically, anything that's
he's constantly looking out.
Any kind of webcam, Sauron is hooked up to it already.
He's sat in his security office with his 4 TVs. And
Palantir 1, 2, 3, and 4.
They're mostly just.
I wish Gandalf would stop putting cloths over them.
It's like a ring
Can't
cam.
see anything. But then we go back to Edoras, where everyone's winding down after Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
And this is where Pippin has his biggest fool of a took moment, I think, in the whole trilogy.
Fool of a took.
Probably. Where
it's visualized very well. Kind of the being magnetically stuck to this fiery orb.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And then even Aragorn takes it off him. Oh, fiery orb.
Yeah.
And in the book, there's more Palantir business, which I'll deal with now, and I won't mention it again throughout. And I don't know, I'm glad it's not in the film really, but again, the Palantirs aren't evil in and of themselves. It's only that it's dangerous because the enemy has one. And Denethor's been looking at it, and that's why Denethor's so sad. So that scene where he kind of comes out and he's in a bit of a daze and he just sees the army and he's like, fucking hell, there's all these orcs. Oh, I'm going to kill myself. That scene is, he's been talking to the enemy for quite some time in the end, but the enemy can't break his will. So it's kind of impressive. But what he can do is just make him incredibly sad. So he kind of diverts his purpose rather than breaking his will. And Aragorn decides without consulting anyone, really. He tells Gandalf that he's done it, but he decides that one of the palantirs properly belongs to him because he's the king of Gondor, and if he's going to come into his inheritance, which is a kind of a long arc of the book, which makes the Army of the Dead stuff slightly less rubbish at the end. So because there it's kind of like, should we look down this scary, what's down there? Oh, an army that's going to win us the whole battle. That's a bit strange. But here he absorbs all of the responsibility of kinghood gradually, and the Palantir is one of the first ways. And he kind of reveals himself to the enemy, and that is part of what takes Sauron's eye off Frodo at the end. So they're not all evil. So here, I guess him being like by it as well was a choice, but not a bad choice.
You see in the extended edition, I think, a shot of Aragorn showing Sauron and Jiril in the Palantir.
Nice.
And it's great.
It's like flashing on a webcam.
You see Aragorn is struggling to hold this thing. Sauron's big eye looking through it. And he just brings up the sword. He's like, yeah, look at that. What do you think of that? And Sauron's eye has got, I don't know how they do it, but Sauron's eye looks a bit scared. It's like, oh God, the sword. It's a really cool scene, which I'm sad isn't in the theatrical cut.
I don't remember that scene.
It's really good.
That does sound cool.
It's great.
Speaking of things that make you a little bit sad in Edoras, I was just sad for Eowyn and with a cup of wine, and she's still fawning after Aragorn.
Times, man?
And it's like, come on, man. And like, obviously, Theoden King is like, I'm really happy for you. You guys are getting together. This is fantastic news. And she's like, it's going to happen. It's not happening.
I guess they have to remind us because it's been a year since we've seen the previous film.
Yeah,
but it hasn't. It's been a week.
It's fun. I did forget that. I felt like she was going to have a little bit, because obviously, like, it's, I really like her story in this movie. She's got an amazing line and an amazing bit, and it's, she's obviously fighting the good fight and raises some good points about people who should be allowed to fight, which is kind of a theme of this movie.
Yeah.
But this whole intro bit just made me feel sad for her. It was just like very
kind of doomed, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I do think it's one of the things that's lost out, again, banging on about Faramir, but in diminishing Faramir, it's not as possible to see her as happy because in the book she finds Faramir in there.
Right.
They have a whole scene in a courtyard of Gondor.
Isn't there a whole chapter like the Houses of Healing or something where Aragorn's basically just going around miraculously curing people, almost Jesus-like in his ability to heal.
Yeah.
I guess through some ability that he has received through his bloodline.
Yeah,
his kingliness.
And then I think there's a fair amount of time devoted to Faramir and Eowyn actually meeting and falling in love with one another.
I did get the sense, or just you see them stood together twice at the end, and I thought, I wonder if maybe they get together. That's nice.
I know, I'm skipping ahead quite a long way, but I was thinking they must think we got a lot of work to do in this crowd scene. Like, who's sat next to who? What's going on?
Yeah,
and that was one of the bits I appreciated.
It's a long ending, isn't it? Which everyone always loves to say, but still not long enough for them to be able to wrap up all the things that were in the book. Obviously, they can't. I think it's the correct decision, in my opinion, to not bother with the Eowyn Faramir.
It's probably correct.
Yeah, I love plot.
I think so. Like I said, I got enough out of that scene. For me, I was like, oh, that's nice. Maybe they get together. I'm happy.
Exactly.
So I don't think we needed more of that. I think that is right. But I was a bit sad for her in this scene where it was like, oh man, can we stop with this?
It's a bit like the aliens from Galaxy Quest when someone's smiling at you in hope. It's really difficult, isn't it? To be like, no.
There's a a little. It's a bit depressing in a way, isn't it? It's like two people who. It's like they've both settled for option B. Really, haven't they?
What?
Like nothing good has really happened to these two characters throughout the films. It's like, okay, you can't have Aragorn, but you can have Faramir. It reminds me in Doctor Who when Rose's boyfriend ends up getting together with Martha. Do you remember that happening?
Vaguely.
And it's all a bit disappointing.
Yeah.
For all concerned.
Aren't there two Roses at the end? No, there's two Doctors. That's it. Anyway,
I can't remember.
We digress.
We've moved on from Doctor Who.
But the other thing after the Palantir is obviously that they learn of kind of Sauron's plan.
I love this. What could Sauron's plan possibly be? Sauron's plan is to attack.
Yes.
Oh no.
Who could have
couldn't have figured that one out?
And of course, Theoden King is like, I'm not going.
It's a bit cheeky, that, isn't it? It's a little bit of a, well, we might just sit here with our horses. We've got lots of brushing to do. And
yes.
He's always going to come and fight. But it does give us that incredible scene. Again, I don't know if we're missing out things, because I thought last time we talked through the film, The Two Towers, going strand by strand isn't quite right, but going moment by moment, it's jumping around all over the place as well. It's difficult, isn't it?
I don't think we have to be nailing every scene.
No, me neither.
But
we'll be here for
as long as we talk about all the best bits, and any bits we thought were less good, I guess.
In general, I thought that I just think Theoden is my favourite. It's partly why I love this film so much. I think Theoden is great. And I think maybe it's because in the 20 years since I first saw the Lord of the Rings trilogy, nearly 25 years, I obviously have become a middle-aged man, essentially. I'm 43 now. And I think natural to getting older, but also we've had a horrible 10 or 15 years. It's been really, really unpleasant for a lot of people. And there is a sense that the days have gone down in the West. And I feel more like Theoden than, I don't feel like we're on the verge of a sense of renewal. But I tell you what, that idea of tides, and I guess it kind of goes back to kind of a Fisher King Arthurian legend of seasonal renewal, that it can feel really difficult when you're in these down periods to imagine anything good. And, I think Theoden is
like
a
the
character.
taste of food.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
a touch of grass.
And Theoden's a character who's like, well, I'm old. All I want is I want to be able to contribute something and then leave the world to everybody else. I respect the heck out of that.
Fantastic lines in this film. I think Denethor has a lot of them. I think Theoden has a lot as well. When he's talking to Éowyn, and he says, I would have you live to see these days renewed. Not grieve for those whose time has come.
That's exactly the saying renewed was exactly the thing that I was thinking of.
But is it just a complete rug pull or distraction? The fact that Theoden's like, oh no, we wouldn't go and help them.
I haven't read Return of the King for so long, I don't know.
But do you think you said he's always going to go and help? Do you think he is always going to go and help? Is he just being bloody minded at that moment? But really, I suppose when it comes to it, it's interesting. No one tries to counsel him otherwise. I don't think everyone just sort of looks like this.
He's a king again.
I think I was like, well, fair enough. I misheard this line for a long time when I first watched the film. When he says, "What do we owe Gondor?" I used to think he said, "Or do we owe Gondor?" And he looks at Aragorn. Do we owe Gondor such a massive debt because one of them has helped us massively in the Battle of Helm's Deep?
Right.
But he says, "What do we owe Gondor?" Nothing. We owe them nothing.
Yeah.
It's just a nice way, I guess, of reminding the audience. Remember in the last film when they basically fought all the Uruk-hai on their own?
Yeah.
And then it obviously gives us that amazing payoff, which we will talk about in a second.
Yeah.
Of the beacons.
After the beacons scene, yeah.
But I would say that if it has a use, it's about the weakness or otherwise of men and the idea that we're, one of the things I thought, it's like a real, shower thought when I was watching the film was, this film's about war and all the horrible things that happen, and evil is portrayed by big eye in a tower and orcs and different monsters, and then I was like, and in the real world all of the monsters are men. and it's a film about
whoa
and it's a film about
what if humans were back.
It's a film about whether the fractiousness of mankind and whether mankind, it's about coming to an alliance of men, and then leading into an age of the dominion of men. And so his hesitation is, will this be the quality of men that stops them from being able to persevere in this moment? I guess. So that's what it's showing us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I was like, and obviously in the real world, that is exactly what stops us from just being happy all the time.
Yes.
Where are our days of peace?
Yeah. I mean, I love a little moment of being bloody minded.
Yeah, who doesn't?
No,
I think he just wants to be noticed and he wants it recognised, I guess.
We did it without their help.
Yeah.
Where were they? Right, guys? Where were they? Anyway, we will go and help.
We then there are quite a few moments in this film. Like, I think there's not much in the Two Towers that makes me cry. The Fellowship, there's a lot.
Yeah, same.
And in the Return of the King, for me, there's quite a lot as well. One of the first bits when I first watched this, maybe in the first 10 years of watching this film, that always used to get me quite a lot was when Merry and Pippin have to part.
Split up.
And it's just very sad. Like these two jokey characters. They're all it's Merry and Pippin. It's the Merry and Pippin bits.
Yeah.
And there is no Merry and Pippin for quite a lot of this film. We see them initially in Isengard in good spirits with their pipeweed and their salted pork. Yeah. And here Pippin has to be taken to Minas Tirith with Gandalf because Sauron thinks he has the ring because he's seen him in the palantir. They got to get him to safety.
Yeah.
And Pippin doesn't really understand what's going on. Merry does. There's that great bit where Pippin, but we'll see each other soon, won't we? And Merry's voice almost breaks. I don't know what's going to happen, Pippin.
I love that scene because it's almost like running away with itself. There's a slight confusion to it. And I'm never sure whether Merry really does know or doesn't know what's going on. And that single line reading where he's like, I don't know. And he said it's almost too quiet to be heard. There's like a fractiousness to the scene itself, which makes it even more unsure. The like uncertainty of it all really comes through. It's a great scene.
He certainly doesn't. Merry certainly knows he's not going with Pippin, which Pippin doesn't seem to know. I think he even says, like, you're coming with me.
Such a strange naivety. I'm always like, why does he know and he doesn't? What's going on?
Yeah.
There is sort of like, there's a weird little conspiracy at work.
I really like it. And I really like Gandalf's line to Shadowfax. Show us the meaning of haste.
Haste, yeah.
Off they go.
Yeah, it's great. He gives him the last of the Longbottom leaf as well.
Yes, he does.
You smoke too much, Pip.
Yeah, I thought that was funny actually. Yeah. That's just like something you'd see on just like EastEnders, just like like a very modern, very contemporary thing to hear.
Got any
you smoke
backy?
Too much. Yeah. You smoke too much.
But yeah, lovely scene.
Lovely.
It is a good scene.
And that poor guard, like Merry climbs the tower to see him, and he pushes past that guard. Then Aragorn goes up as well.
For God's sake.
I'm just trying to do my lookout duty.
There's lots of Aragorn not being very regal in this one. Loads of him running about. And there's like, he just sees Merry running and he just starts sprinting after Merry. It's like, why? Well, let him look at the tower. What's wrong with that? It's just like added moment.
They all treat the hobbits, especially Merry and Pippin, like unruly toddlers. Just someone who's watching Merry and Pippin. Aragorn, you're supposed to be watching Merry and Pippin. Where's Merry? At the top of the tower.
Oh my God, he could fall.
What's he doing up there?
He's only 50 years old.
I can't remember exactly what happens in terms of the order of things, but obviously Gandalf arrives in Minas Tirith with Pippin.
Yeah.
And we get introduced properly to Denethor for the first time.
Can we just spare a moment for how
scene.
fucking unbelievable Gondor looks? I don't know if it's just because this is the biggest screen I've watched it on for a while, but it's unbelievable.
I think the film, we're watching the 4K Blu-rays on a big old projector screen. Yeah. And my God, these films look good, which I've been thinking throughout. But yeah, the shot where they crest over the hill and Minas Tirith comes into view.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And it's again like a baked into my subconscious version of the city from all of the artwork that I've seen over the years. It's quite a classic, but just built onto a mountain. But it's dramatic and unreal, and I don't know. I feel more. It's so easy to watch this stuff and just let these visuals kind of passively wash over you. But at this time, there's so much in Return of the King. Looks so good. It's great.
It's like the quintessential fantasy castle town, walled town. It's like amazing. It's completely, it's iconic, so iconic, and I assume that it's heavily described in the books, but it looks. I love that they managed to build it, and I assume again this is how it's written, but they build it like you can see the history of it. Like I don't know what the history of it is, but I mean there's so many things like architectural choices and statues and just the big kind of huge courtyard right at the top. And it just sort of speaks to a history of this place that having been built and having things happen and people making decisions, rather than just like, this would look cool. It's not just like a cool looking place.
Cool.
It looks like it's got a history, which I think is like a real credit to it.
It does look like it's got a history, but like so many things in the Jackson trilogy, there's something a little bit larger than life about it. And I really like the artistic decision. With quite a lot of the, you could say Barad-dûr is the same thing. The camera pans up Barad-dûr and you get that thing where you're like, oh, we must be at the top of the tower now. And you're like a third of the way up and there's still more and more and more and more of it. And they look like Alan Lee drawings, because obviously he's been a concept artist on the film. They look like fantasy book covers brought to life. Like you were showing me your front covers of The Two Towers and The Return of the King last week. And sort of like the structures and towers on the front of those covers just so capture the imagination so massively. They're so impossibly huge in their construction to the point where you feel like they could only have been built with the power of some kind of something beyond what man is capable of, like some kind of magic has gone into their construction.
It's the grace of the Eldar has passed through the Númenóreans, Rob.
You know, it's unbelievable. And Minas Tirith and many of the places in Jackson's trilogy give you that feeling. I love it. It looks unbelievable. It's so different to how I imagined it when I first read the book. I remember seeing it on screen for the first time and thinking, oh my God.
Yeah, same.
I didn't think it looked like that. It looks amazing.
It's cool as hell.
It looks so cool.
Sometimes there's no other word for it. It just looks cool.
It just looks great. Yeah. There are so many amazing shots of Minas Tirith in this film as well.
There's a frustration to their arrival. I guess Denethor is one of those impediments. But I think the performance is brilliant.
Oh, he's so good.
He's such a... when he's nice, for just a little bit, I was like, oh, Denethor.
And I shall not forget it, nor fail to reward.
Could have been
that which is given.
A great steward, but
no,
unfortunately, he's a lunatic. But this is I do like, and I was saying, and I've realised it more coming from the audio stories than from the films, that Merry and Pippin, this is like they're growing up. They go into service. They basically just they have their own little mini epics where they just go off and fight, basically, but in different spheres of men. They kind of enter the world of men properly. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's a great first. I love the first conversation with Denethor. There's a bunch of really, again, delivered wrongly. These lines could be really sort of clunky and strange and unnatural, but the way he delivers them is just so good. You think the eyes of the White Tower are blind? With your left hand you would use me as a shield against Mordor, and with your right you would seek to supplant me. It's just so good, delivered with such really good venom.
I also like that the kind of the video game logic of him, he's just waiting to be activated.
Yes.
He's sat there looking at the horn. Yes. Hey, look, mate, you've had that for weeks.
I was going to say, how long do you think he's had it?
The eyes of the White Tower aren't blind. You'll have seen Gandalf coming. So quickly, give me the horn. I'm going to sit here. Oh, he's going to come in a minute.
He'll be here any moment.
Just everyone he's going to have to walk across here. I want him to clonk his walking staff, and I want it to echo around this empty hall.
It's like when you fought with your parents and you're sat in your room. You're ready for them. They're going to knock on the door. Oh, I'm going to look sad.
Perhaps you come to explain this.
That's what it was like in my house.
So Pippin then enters the service of Denethor.
He does, only for a little bit. Just sings in one song, really.
Yeah.
He gets all of his uniform and his weapons. And this is I really enjoy this sequence of the film where you've got Gandalf and Pippin looking towards Mordor, and Gandalf is sort of explaining to Pippin, this is bad now.
Yeah.
This is the bit where things really get bad. There's Mordor. We're looking at it. They're going to come. They're going to attack the city. And you might have to do some fighting. And then at the same time,
we're seeing Osgiliath.
We are Osgiliath. I think we have seen a bit of Osgiliath at this moment. I can't remember whether we'll get to that bit.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy how we're with Frodo and Sam and Gollum as they reach the pass of Cirith Ungol and the stairs right opposite Minas Morgul, and we see Minas Morgul emptying, and that big green pillar of light fires up into the sky.
Who knows what that is?
I don't know if that's in the book, but it looks good, doesn't it? And then we get to see it from Gandalf and Pippin's point of view, and I really enjoy.
It's like everyone's getting closer together, aren't they?
It's just really, really good. Again, Minas Morgul as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nath, but I believe that was once a city of men.
Yeah.
Was
it Minas Ithil? Was that what it was?
I think you might be right, yes. Until it was taken over by Sauron and given the more evil name Minas Morgul.
Yeah, let's change the name.
Which, not Minas Ithil, that sounds like too much of what the goodies would call a place.
Elfy,
Morgul, that sounds evil, let's call it that. And let's also add some green lighting.
We got the uplighters.
Green. Yeah.
Really well
we've
lit,
got really
actually.
big ones.
Really well. Like, they've done a great job with that.
Looks great though. I love this. There's a sound effect when Frodo, in one of his many instances of being lured towards something evil in this film, like you're doing the Dead Marshes thing again, Frodo. Stop walking towards it all the time.
It's difficult.
It's like a sound. It's just a souring note that happens as Frodo's walking up to it, and you see like the gargoyle statues in this big, just empty, deserted place.
Yeah,
just so good. And
I love this. The first time I saw it, just the idea, and again, it probably comes from that idea of video games. But I think that in itself is related to that kind of sense of escapism that I first had when I was reading these stories. But the idea of just coming across a massive fortress or citadel, and like, there's the way.
Yeah.
You can, and of course you want to go and explore it. So I remember the first time I ever saw this, and Frodo kind of, and I obviously didn't. I was terrified of him going down that path. I remember you get that kind of screaming sense within your body, but at the same time I was like, you should check it out, get some experience points.
I think it makes me think so many things, this scene. One of the things is I love the very front of the orc lines, like the first ones who come out. I just think about them, like they're going to be at the front all the way to to Minas Tirith, and they're
like when you queue for the front of a roller coaster on towers.
Exactly.
Front row queue is separate.
And they're really, they do really good orc walks as well. It's great the way they move, like really sort of jarring and staccato movements. And I think this scene is absolutely incredible at giving you a sense of the scale of the army, which obviously, we will see later in the when Denethor comes out and we see them all out there, but it's too big to comprehend, really. Like when someone says like 10 billion pounds, like
right.
you just have no idea what that actually, that's so much I can't comprehend.
How many Frodos is that? That's a lot of
but
Frodos.
this scene, I think, is the exact right way to give you a sense of the scale, because obviously every time, and I think we even cut away to other scenes, but every time we come back, they're climbing, and you look down, you always see in the distance.
Oh God, I wanted to mention this.
Still coming out of
the vertiginousness.
Those scenes are amazing.
They're so good, and that is just the sense of scale. That's the perfect way to tell me how big the army is, because they're still coming out. They've climbed up this horrible staircase, which is hard work. It's so steep, and they're still coming out.
Before Rob talks about how high it is, I've just remembered that the colour of the tower really specifically reminds me of the LCD screen of my MIDI hi-fi system from when I was a kid.
Yeah,
it's that same colour.
Yes.
Oh, I might listen to the blue tones.
It was very cool. Again, very cool kind of uplighting that you could get on some.
That's basically what my teenage bedroom looked like. It's, Minas Morgul.
That was a reason to buy a stereo back then. Was like,
I used to love those.
What's the lighting?
Anyway, Rob, talk to us about the stairs.
Of course. Well, I also wanted to mention the Witch King of Angmar, who has gone Super Saiyan 2 now since his first appearance at Weathertop.
Yeah.
He's put on his evil helmet and he's got on his fell beast. I love him coming out of Minas Morgul as well.
Yeah.
And you just seeing him flying over. It's a lovely bit, isn't it? Because they don't know Frodo and Sam are there. It's just like a day in the office for them.
Yeah.
It's like you get to see almost, I wonder what it would just be like in the morning for the Witch King of Angmar when he wakes up.
Yeah.
Just put my helmet on, put my gloves
it's
on.
Like a TikTok I've never seen. Join me in one day of the life of the Witch King of Angmar.
Get ready with me.
Oh,
Yeah.
6 o'clock in the
Here's
morning.
today's look.
Wake
We're
up
going
and do
for
crunches.
going for the black cloak, obviously. Classic, never lets you down. We're going to pair it today with the metal evil spiked helmet and the metallic evil greaves.
Doesn't offer much real protection, but then can be killed by no man.
Yeah,
so,
no man can kill me, so it doesn't matter.
The army are already marching on their way to Gondor, so I do a vertical takeoff. With
My chosen vehicle of the day, Fell Beast. It's so great though. Frodo and Sam and Gollum are just hiding, and you go up the stairs of Cirith Ungol again in classic Jackson style, like it's a little bit ridiculously theatrical how steep this staircase is.
Yeah.
It's almost, there's some shots of it where you're you can't explain how they are not falling off. Yeah. You're like, and the bit where they're sleeping on the edge as well.
That's
Jesus
the bit
Christ.
That gets me,
But those shots where you can just, like you say, Dave, you can still see however many hundreds of feet below the army still coming out of Minas Morgul. The sound of it as well, slightly quiet, but you can just hear that rhythmic.
I love
them marching out.
The marching.
It's fantastic the way it's just all happening still underneath.
Contrast to the Rankin and Bass movie, which is famous for its one thing really, which is well, apart from being terrible, is that they
it's got two things.
When they're marching, when that army is marching, there is a part of the story where Frodo and Sam get bound up with it, and they're marching along with it, and they're kind of whipped and made to walk, and it's horrible because they're knackered already and they're scared and everything. But in the Rankin and Bass film, there's a song called "Where There's a Whip, There's a Way," and everyone, like, again, it is on TikTok because people think it's a bit of a banger. Where there's a whip, bam, bam, there's a way, and then this goes on for ages. I'll play it to you later.
Sad that we didn't get that in this movie.
Yeah, they probably thought about it. Yeah. And then so we should talk about Osgiliath.
Yeah,
a little bit of Faramir being heroic. He's certainly good at fighting, but he's always on the back foot. And Osgiliath, I'm not sure that when I first saw the film, I really got the importance of Osgiliath. And I guess you have that slightly unreal geography of this enormous citadel built into the mountain, and then you can see over the plains. They already look like ruins. Is part of the problem. It's like, why are you fighting over the ruins? But it's a city which they have recently lost, which controls access from Mordor, basically, because there's a bridge over the river, and that's what they're fighting for. And they lose it.
Yeah.
I love that scene.
It's a great scene.
It's kind of like a Band of Brothers style scene.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very a war movie. Yes, it's that sort of proper urban warfare. You know, they're hiding in little alleyways and streets and trying to create ambushes and stuff like that.
There is that when he ducks behind and they do those volley of arrows. That is very... And while you were talking, I just kind of got a picture of like a PS4 game cover, Faramir Urban Warfare.
Yeah.
He's there.
It is good. I did wonder about
Osgiliath ruins.
I did wonder about his the tactics. Actually, I wasn't sure that they actually went the right way. But I wasn't sure. Where they're like they hide behind pillars. Like, half of them have gone in now, and now you come out and you fight the other half,
and then we'll be surrounded.
They just turn around and go, "Oh, there they are." We'll just stab them in the back.
There they are. I mean, that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, it's kind of what happens.
I mean, it looked like the plan was something different, but Faramir just could not contain his repulsion at the fact that these orcs were just swarming his beloved Osgiliath. It looked like, Faramir, no, we're supposed to be waiting, and he's, no, I have to fight them. And
yes, he does kind of do that. He powers up.
I think that there is, and the fact that we're struggling a little bit to track what scenes came in what order speaks to the elegance of the editing and the pacing, which the film has to manage. A lot happens.
Yeah.
And again, without being necessarily aware of the precise strategic stakes, what the film is doing is building up all of the beats that it needs to pay off at the massive battle, which is coming later. And this is kind of just placing Faramir within a certain kind of place with respect to Denethor and Gondor and I guess Boromir's reputation. And I guess that's all you need really. And I do think there are tons of those decisions which have been made. And the book that I have in my hand, I'm not going to read any of it now, don't worry, but is The Letters of J.R.R. Tolkien, which you can get as a collected
big book. He's obviously written a lot of letters.
He's a huge letter writer, and this is only a fraction of the letters. And these are obviously the ones where he's copied a version to himself so that he can keep his correspondence, which is something that people...
I just wrote an absolutely banging letter there. I'm going to write it twice.
Keep in hold of this one.
Put that in my Google folder.
And he talks in this about adaptations and not being precious about them, but also when he is talking very intelligently, and he's a very stubborn man, about them, he says that his book isn't particularly for plot, and it's a bit like we were talking last time, the mode in which he's writing has a lot more space for kind of just detail, and it isn't about these sort of dramatizations. So in trying to put that into a screenplay, I really like, for all of the whinging that I have done over the last episode and a bit, I think that they have made great decisions in order to try to put some of that dramatization into it. And this is one of those bits. And I enjoy the action of Osgiliath. And you just get a sense of, this orc army's coming and they're really mean and they're probably going to win. And I guess that's important, isn't it?
And you then obviously we get to have the scene of Gandalf.
It's one of my favourite scenes of the film.
Riding to save them.
Holy shit, this bit's so good.
It's amazing. The music is what makes it for me.
It's the music and that shot after he's sent them all off with his white beam, this white pulse of light comes out of his staff. And there's that sort of like handheld shot that's behind Gandalf. The riders of Osgiliath join him. They turn around and you just see Minas Tirith for a little bit in the background. Again, in that hand. Oh my God, the shot is so good.
Isn't it a shame that all of those men are then killed and their heads are thrown back over the wall?
Yeah.
Because of death.
They're like, oh God, we'll regroup. It's like, no.
And
you're all gonna die in a
Gandalf's
minute.
used his special attack. He can't use that for the rest
I've
of
got that on a cooldown now.
That's right. Yeah, 4 years.
Can't use that until the next age.
Yeah, it's great. And so we finally have Gandalf meet Faramir and Pippin.
Yeah.
And so they get the news that they've kind of wanted, they've been desperate for.
That was great.
Frodo
I
and
don't
Sam
know
are
if
alive.
it was just Billy Boyd, but that reaction really got to me this time. He was so pleased that there was still hope. And I guess that they do a really good job of saying that all of these people are doing what they must, but they're fighting and they know that even if they win, they will lose unless this ridiculous moonshot, like we just send this child-sized being to do the most important task of all in the most dangerous place in the world.
Yeah.
And and them getting some positive news was
it's also one of the most important narrative scenes in the film, I think, in terms of what Gandalf knows, because this is the point, and we don't see it on film, where presumably Faramir tells him about Gollum as well, because he says, "Oh, where were they going? They took the path of Cirith Ungol."
Yeah.
Faramir, tell me everything. And then right at the very, very end, you see when Gandalf picks Frodo and Sam up with the eagles, there's 3 eagles. So maybe Gandalf thought that Gollum could have still been alive.
Yeah.
And was
interesting.
Was going to save him as well.
Gets close to repenting, doesn't he, Gollum? And there are some letters about that from not in this. That moment's past. It was in the previous.
The previous letters of J.R.R. Tolkien.
No, in the previous film there was a moment, and in this one he's just evil.
Well, he still tries a little bit,
kind of, but I mean, pretty well.
He's pretty all in, I think.
My image is of him at the end of Shelob's tunnel, just singing a song.
Caught in a web. And he doesn't make it rhyme.
No,
the last line, soon he'll be eaten. It's great. It's so good. But then afterwards, when he nearly gets strangled by Frodo.
Yeah.
And he's just like, it wasn't me.
The precious made us do it.
And that's the decision there. I know we've skipped way ahead. We must come back to Shelob, but Frodo's decision at that point not to kill him is there's been all this build up about the pity showed by Bilbo, and that's Frodo's one moment of deciding very clearly, even though he absolutely should kill him at that point.
He should.
Deciding not to. I'm going to do this for both of us, and and that's why the scene at the very beginning of the film is important.
Yeah,
this is the fate of Frodo. And this is what he's going to be struggling with now. Please watch Return of the King.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Just the idea, like that's the one thing he could say that I think that would ring true for Frodo. It's like the precious maybe do it or whatever. Is like that is the truth of it, and Frodo understands that probably in a way that most other characters wouldn't and can't.
And I guess
he's fighting that the whole time.
Rewinding to before that, the scenes with I've never loved the scene of Frodo and Sam's breaking, and I don't think it happens in the book, and I can see why it's in the film. One of the bits that really upsets me most about it is that when Sam is climbing back down, he's going face first down those steps, which is insane. You should be facing the mountain and climbing like it's a ladder. And the other one is when he finds the lembas bread, he dramatically grabs it and squashes it, and I'm like, that's like 2 weeks food.
That's the silliest
Pick
thing.
it up and pack it away. What are you doing, man? It's like, that stinker.
I was thinking
stinker.
He was thinking if it was me, I'd be like taking it back up. I'd be like, you see, See, I found it.
If it was me, I'd be furiously. I can't believe he's done this.
I did think like it was just crazy that Frodo just basically says, "Go home, Sam."
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like it's about 6 months walk, like, and there's wars going on and stuff. It's
he's
like,
basically saying, "Just go and kill yourself."
That's exactly. It's like there's no going home.
We should do like a kill yourself counter for Lord of the Rings, like Gandalf telling Pippin to jump in the well. There's a great meme. It's the scene at the start in Edoras where Aragorn's talking to Gandalf, and Aragorn is convincing Gandalf that Frodo is actually still alive. You know, what does your heart tell you? There's a meme of that, and Gandalf, Ian McKellen does like a face that works beautifully for it, where Gandalf is trying to remember what he used to be like when he was Gandalf the Grey. I can't remember exactly what it is, but basically Aragorn says, "In Moria, you told Pippin to kill himself." And it cuts to Ian McKellen. Did I? It's great.
No memory.
Oh, yes, I did. Yeah.
Oh. This is all after we have another great Gollum conversation with himself in the water.
I appreciated the variation,
which is really, really excellent. Yeah. But I just found it like an untenable position for Sam, who has woken up and has heard Gollum literally plotting to kill them, and then like just tells Frodo like this, and he's like, "No, Sam, just like he's fine. He'd never."
It's got my favourite.
And he's like, "No, but I did though. He is plotting to kill us."
He's got my favourite bit where he wakes up, and I don't think it's as clear in the book, and I never knew that this line was in the book. I thought it was a film invention, where he kind of wakes up and says, "What have you been doing? Sneaking about?" And Gollum goes off on one. And he said, "What have you been doing?" It's sneaking.
Yeah.
It's my favourite Gollum line. It's so good.
Yeah.
A lot of that ambiguity has been pulled out and made, manifest in the film, but I do think it is there in the original writing as well.
Do you think Sam's offer to carry the ring for a bit is like just completely innocent?
Yep.
And it's but it's is it also completely naive, because surely he must know that he can't and it's bad, and I
think he's the purest character. I think that he does it only to help Frodo and the cause, and I don't think he's got any designs on the ring at all, and I think that he's hurt when Frodo is taken aback by the offer, and the way that it and that's based on, again, how it kind of plays out in the book, that he just does it because out of need, and then Frodo is angry with him that he has done it, not that he even asks to do it.
Right.
He's angry though because Gollum has planted the seed in his head that he's going to be asking for it, implying that he's going to be asking for it because he wants it for himself.
Clever Gollum.
So Gollum, who is by this point an extension of the ring's will, essentially, is basically just poisoning Frodo's mind. And Frodo probably would not have thought that of Sam had Gollum not been there going, "See, he wants it for himself."
So I guess the reason that, I don't like this because it's not what I want to happen, right? So there is that dramatically, it's working on me. There is that sense of it. But there's also, I think there is a strength and a purity to the relationship between Frodo and Sam, which is then changed slightly for the film in order to give this moment. But I can't argue that the moment where Sam comes back,
I think that's
with the payoff is so good.
That's why they do it. Surely it's like it ultimately only strengthens it. It's like Sam he loves Frodo so much that he's like, "No, I will save him." And the things he does, the things he goes through, the things he manages to do, that's like, if that was a video game level, you'd be like, "Oh, screw this. There's no way I am."
Climb back up.
You want me to do this on Silent Assassin? I've got to get in there
exactly
and get out without being seen.
And your provision is the lembas bread you didn't bring.
Equip lembas bread,
and you've got to grab that.
That's probably my biggest annoyance when it comes to deviations from the book, is that lembas bread, you're supposed to be able to eat a tiny little
and feel amazing
crumb of it and have your belly be full. And in the extended edition of the Fellowship of the Ring, Legolas does say that, I think, to Pippin. It's like, "Lembas bread, one small bite is enough to fill the belly of a grown man. And I think Merry then speaks to Pippin. He's like, how many did you have? And Pippin's like, 3.
They do make lember spread look delicious, though.
They do, and it's just wrapped so nicely as well.
It looks like
elven
crackers.
leaves.
What you want? It looks like something I'd leave on a buffet.
It looks like focaccia, but that's crispy somehow and like light and airy.
It looks
it doesn't look dry like crackers. It looks kind of oily like focaccia in a good way. I would
hummus.
absolutely eat some lember. Yeah, have it with some hummus. Yeah,
you got any hummus, Mr. Frodo? So I guess what I was going to say was this is like a zoomed in version where I'm putting myself in the headspace of a Christopher Tolkien. They have made something elegant and elevated, but maybe a little bit boring, and they've dumbed it down a little bit to give a payoff for a broader audience. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I mean, I fucking love the scene where, stay away. What is it? Stay away from him, you filth. Don't touch him, you filth. What's the line? Where he comes back in with Sting.
Let him go, you filth.
So good.
You will not touch him again.
And he's just there. There is like, and when you think about poses of action heroes and heroic characters, we've had so many over the last sort of 15 years with the Marvel movies.
It's Samwise's Ellen Ripley moment with the flamethrower, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And he's huddled and he's got, is it the light of Elendil?
Yeah.
Is that what it is in one hand? He's got Sting in the other. He's got all his pots and pans on the back. He's hunched over. That's his gear. I love that.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, Sting and the light. The first shot is Peter Jackson's hand.
Ah.
Because, for reasons. Sean Astin wasn't on set that day and they needed a shot of basically Samwise's hand with Sting and the light coming in.
We need a chubby hand.
So that is Peter Jackson for that one bit. We've skipped over loads of stuff because we've been talking about Gollum and Frodo and Sam for a bit. But we
can go back.
We should go back to Minas Tirith. Again, I can't remember the order of events, but basically Gandalf realises, well, we need Rohan's help. So we've got to light the beacons. He's tried to convince Denethor to send aid, to ask for aid from Rohan. But Denethor's like, no. Why would I be asking them? But I know who's with Rohan. Aragorn's with Rohan. And I will not be bowing to this ranger from the north. Doesn't say it like that, obviously. He says it much better.
Yeah.
He absolutely nails, I think, as well, Gandalf's kind of plot plan. I think he does.
I mean, he does, yeah.
With your left hand, this, and with your right hand, that. And it's just like Gandalf is very... The whole scene is bad for Gandalf.
Well, you've nailed me there, actually.
Yeah. He's like, Pippin, don't say anything. I'll do all the talking. I know exactly how to play this. And then straight away, he's like, oh, no, this is bad. This is a bad room for me.
But I think that... And just as what's playing around in my head, the stuff I really enjoy about this scene, like I was saying, is the underlying theme of the weakness of men or the politicking of men being destructive ultimately to their survival. And also the idea of, Denethor raises some good points, and it's only because the story and I think the world is committed to the idea of the rightfulness of kings in general over stewards. Boromir has a point. How long do you have to be a steward before you're king? It's been hundreds of years, lads. Can we not just call ourselves kings? The idea of that, not reflective of anything that would ever happen in the real world of men, even when kings were more constitutionally important, and just that is within Tolkien's world that is reflected. So we like Aragorn and we know that he's noble, so of course we want him to come back. But apart from being a lunatic,
but
he has some good points.
But Aragorn literally is better, isn't he?
He is better, yeah.
Literally is.
Yeah.
It's not like kings in the real world who are just people. No. Aragorn there's a divinity about him.
And yeah, exactly. Which I think, and I don't know, you just have, it's a story, innit?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's a folk story made to make us all feel nice. So that's what that's about.
Anyway, we then get the beacon scene.
We do.
Which has got to be up there, top 5 scenes in the trilogy, the beacon bit. Everyone knows the beacon bit.
I remember seeing it in the cinema and again just being astonished.
Yeah.
Astonished. And the music's fantastic.
It's quite simple, isn't it, really? It's just, let's get a bunch of... It's probably the easiest bit of the sequence to make, of the film to make, probably. Have we got a collection of helicopter shots of the mountains? Yeah. The effects guys, this is going to be an easy day for you. I just need fire. Some fire on the mountains really as we go through. Just like it.
Really far.
And... Howard, you got some rousing music for this? I bet they did that in a day. The beacon scene. I reckon a day's
there
work.
must be a bit of Peter Jackson talking about it. It's actually the hardest thing that we had to do in the entire
They did build that one little beacon that you get kind of a close-up of, though. I don't mean the one that is first lit. I mean, there's one on a mountain where you see two guys and they've got like a little hovel that they live in.
They must
and
be
come
there the
out,
whole time.
And I think they're quite excited by
This is what I always think of. It's like
that's the best thing. Thinking about that.
Where these outposts,
When was
these
the last
incredibly remote outposts, it's like being a fire watchman in whatever that place was in that
Shoshone.
game.
Yeah.
Shoshone National Park. Yeah. Oh, I'd love that job.
I know you
How
would.
long do you have to live up there? Like, do you have to do like 6-month stints?
1,000 people
Your
died
job
today
is-
because the fire warden was playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
The job is basically to just sit.
Bloody hell, Gondor's called for aid. I completely missed it. I've missed that. That's on me. Sorry, guys. That's on me. Yeah, the war's over. That's on me.
You just liked it anyway.
yeah.
I did like it.
Oh, no.
My favourite shots are the ones where you see in the foreground flame, and then there's a delay of a few seconds, and then miles away, flame. You're right. I was thinking yesterday, this is pretty simple, isn't it? And I was also thinking, there's no way anyone's ever gotten. There's no way they've built a beacon on the top of this mountain.
And they
There's
were
no
lucky
way.
as well with the cloud inversions that they had.
They were.
Because if the clouds were higher or obscuring the mountains, then they wouldn't be able to see. Anyway, you don't need to worry about
the
nonsense
fate
like
of
that.
men hangs by such threads.
Do you think they had some they've got like several pathways of beacons, maybe one, so they can go different ways in case the clouds are bad? They've got more beacons than it's not just one
Need to
line.
use the one at 300 feet, lads, because there's a lot of cloud cover at 1,000 feet.
Like every beacon.
I really just thought what a genius idea it was, and I know that it's not an invention; it's from the real world. But I wonder if that, if anything like that, or what the kind of most dramatic example of that in the real world was.
I don't know if this is in the books, because again, it's been so long since I read Return of the King. I don't think it's in the audio version that I listened to. And if it's a pure invention, it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
So
image.
good.
Well, you don't. The beacons being lit is not.
I'm not sure.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm going to Google it now.
Okay. Yeah.
Talk fire amongst yourselves.
Yeah. I think it's a fantastic. It's visually stunning. It is fascinating. It makes you think about, like we said, all the people who live by the beacons. And I was thinking, like, at what point have we crossed over into Rohan now? And is it Rohan people who work on those beacons, or I guess I think it's
They're in the book. It's fine.
okay. Good.
It reminds me of making my zipline network in Death Stranding.
The zip lines are zipped.
The placement of them. Like in Death Stranding, a zip line has to, I think, be like 300. It can't be more than 300 meters from another zip line if you want to connect it to another zip line. And so finding the exact right point in the landscape to place your zip lines so you have like a route beautifully through the mountains. It's very difficult. And yeah, I just imagined the planning, the architectural planning of where shall we build the beacons.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that each beacon has to be able to see the beacon in front and the beacon behind.
It's just absolutely genius. Like, we know it's a 3-day ride because that's been said earlier in the movie. And it's like, I was just thinking about how long has it taken, how long does this take to communicate? It seems to take longer, I think, than actually it should, because they go into night at one point. But beacon is lit, and then like another 5 seconds, beacon is lit.
Well, then at the
It's
other
so
end,
cool.
Aragorn does a bit of his reckless running around. He's
Yeah.
so excited. It's like, that's taken days. It's going to take days for you to get there. There is a sense of like slow pace to this entire adventure, and yet he sees the beacon. It's like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
I've got to go and tell everyone
I
immediately.
love how excited he is about
What
it.
we don't see is about 2 minutes after that scene is the guy whose job it is to see that the beacon's lit comes in and goes, "Beacon's lit," and everyone's like, "Yes, I know, we're already going." Steve,
You've missed the line, Steve.
Aragorn was having a coffee and he saw it. So
It's one of my favourite Theoden moments, of many great Theoden moments in the movie, where you just see him. The question hangs. It's not even a question. Aragorn just states, "Gondor calls for aid."
yeah,
Theoden only takes a moment, and it's amazing when he's just like, "And Rohan will answer." Oh my God!
He doesn't give the line too much, which I really
No.
appreciate. In my head, he said, "And Rohan will answer." He doesn't do that. And Rohan will answer. He's so good in this film.
Yeah.
I underplayed how good. I always loved the Pelennor fields, but over Two Towers in Return of the King, he's does such a good line in the doomed but noble king. So good. The stuff that I dislike more about Theoden are the moments where he has to be surprised. I think that once he's back into himself, I don't like that as much. He's not indefeatable, but there's a couple of moments at Helm's Deep where he's like, "Is this all you've got?" And then he's really sad when it blows up. And when he sees later on, when he sees the Witch King coming, and he's like, "Fuck!" It's the only thing you can say about it.
It's more sort of like a, for God's sake, look on his face. It's like, is this it now?
I've been so well.
It's like when your kill streak comes to an end. Who knew there were so many parallels you could draw between the Lord of the Rings and Call of Duty?
Tolkien knew. That's who knew.
So yeah, the beacons get lit and Rohan's ready. There are a lot of riders, aren't there? Where the hell were all these guys at Helm's Deep? Well, they just scattered around.
Yeah, they came at the end. That was their whole...
Yeah.
No, but it's more than just Éomer's company. There's like 6,000 of them. Like when they get to the encampment, it's like got 500 from Dunharrow, wherever they've come from.
It's true.
So there's loads of little settlements, I'm guessing, all over Rohan. Rohan's not just Edoras and
it's
then
a nation.
Some fields.
It's a nation. And the nation hasn't been governed because he's been under the spell of Saruman. So he has this moment of needing to react quickly and survive, and then he can muster
They should go to Helm's Deep and be like, oh, by the way, just send 2 or 3 people out in all different directions. You go to Dunharrow, you go there, you go there. And then anyway, who cares?
Well, I think that's
Helm's
what Gandalf did, and it was for Ekenbrand or whatever his name is, who isn't in the films, but he's a brilliant warrior, and he's kind of merged with Éomer in the movies. So you get a simpler version of it, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, there's loads of horses.
Loads of horses, but still less than half of what Theoden had hoped for. So how many were you hoping for? 15,000.
It must have been about
You got 15,000 riders. Honestly, 15,000 cavalry was going to would have taken out the Mordor army.
And why don't they come? I thought that they were like ordered to. I thought that
I think
Theoden King. He's able to go.
I think it's like a little bit of the Game of Thrones here when the banners are called,
right?
And
not everyone.
I'm guessing not everyone is as noble as everyone else in Rohan. You probably got some pockets, some villages where people are like, I'm not going.
I mean, Theoden himself nearly doesn't come.
True,
if we're to believe.
To where? Gondor.
I'm not going to Gondor. Why the hell should we go to Gondor? He's probably just there trying to look after their families, hard life on the farm, on the croft.
When you're well invested in the story of, you understand there's a Dark Lord who's about to come into his power and destroy the world of men. It's kind of like, well, we should go. Definitely, we should go. But if you're not with the main group and you're just at home and your crops have been and your son's been murdered,
what? And a ring of power.
Yeah, like
get
we're
out.
Gonna stay here.
So just so I can be one of those ones that gets taken out by an arrow in the charge.
Yeah,
I ain't being one of those.
Do they have Oliphants? Oh well, I'm not going. Obviously.
Yeah. So all the heroic people are killed, and Rohan is left to all the cowardly people who didn't go.
Yeah. Well, this is.
I think quite a lot of them survive.
Yeah, no, they do.
The days have gone.
And then they go on a killing spree over all the disloyal people.
See, if George R. R. Martin was writing this, there'd be chapters full of like rogue Rohan riders who just went pillaging after Theoden and all the noble went off to Gondor.
Yeah, that
had just had their way with all of the peasant towns. Across Rohan.
Well, I'm glad he did.
They'd have got back to Edoras, and there'd be Gregor Clegane would be sitting there.
To be fair, that sounds quite a lot like what happens at the end with the Shire. Sharky's there. we killed the Letho Baggins or whatever the place is.
Letho Baggins. So, yes, there are lots of strands of stuff happening at the moment. So we've got Rohan camping, again, impossibly, on like a ridiculously high plateau.
I was less sure about
the winding stair on a mountain.
I'm very convinced by the geography in general in Lord of the Rings as well. It's part of the reason it's so pleasurable. But I did feel like the Army of the Dead stuff, it's difficult, but they're perched in this weird cliff, and it's so deliberate that they're there. Yeah. And they're like, and what's that alleyway over there? And it is only an alleyway. It's not. It's completely unreal. It's like Nightmare, the kids' TV show.
Yeah.
It's so unreal.
And he even sees like the King of the Dead, like pops out for a look to see Aragorn. Like,
There's always a bit. There's always a bit, isn't there? For me, anyway, in every Lord of the Rings film, I'm like, oh, it's that bit, and this is the bit for me, and it's the one thing I think if they ever do make the films again, I would love for them to do better, because I think, and there must be a way to do this well. I think they're too pantomimey.
They're too ghostly.
They're too, the lead one, he's enjoying himself too much.
Yeah.
They should be tortured.
Yes.
Like just having the worst, most miserable time. They should be terrifying. But the lead loves it. He's like,
But there's so many
the
ways.
way is shut.
I think that
we're dead and scary.
when you were talking about Game of Thrones, I think there's loads of ways that Game of Thrones does the uncanny in its representations. I'm talking about the show, where you have typical fantasy tropes or ideas which are played out in ways which are compelling or unusual. And I'm thinking specifically of the is it Jack and Hagar?
Yes, the faceless men.
Yeah, and the idea of assassins and disguises, and there's something supernatural happening, and you're not really sure what it is.
Yeah,
and a version of the Army of the Dead. I think reading the descriptions in the book, it is supernatural, it is uncanny, but I don't think he says, and they look like big ghosts or anything like that. And the bit that stays in my mind is that they make the bargain and they flee, and Gimli turns around and sees them riding behind them with them, and he still is like the most awful thing that's happened, and he just wants to get out of wherever they are. And the descriptions do become slightly less concrete, and I like that. And there must be a way of putting that on screen. And I understand the challenges of it. It's very, very difficult, but this has always felt like a bit of an afterthought. Or afterthoughts, maybe not. It just doesn't land, does it? And them sweeping over the landscape, and like the final shot after everything is a real anticlimax, I think, of how do we rid Gondor of, and it's just like this swirling green smoke.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, that's not my fave.
No.
So again, yeah, I agree. If they do it again, I would love.
It's difficult though, isn't it? Like
something grounded, something grounded.
We've had this great battle, and there was a bit where all the orcs came in. The orcs came into Minas Tirith. It was all bad. I was like, oh God, we've got to. So they've won on the fields, but Minas Tirith is still screwed in it. The people in there, how are we going to make it so that they're all right? Send the ghosts in.
Yeah, send the ghosts.
The smoke, the green smoke.
I don't think they even get to the final battle in the book. I think that they help them take the black ships, and then they say, "That's it, that's your lot," and they stay within the bounds of wherever they are.
Yeah, I expected to see them battling ships. I wonder, perhaps that's in the extended edition.
There's a small scene in the extended edition.
Yeah,
where Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn are standing by like a river, and the ships come across, and Gimli's like, "Prepare to be boarded," and the pirates all laugh, and they're like, "Haha, by you and whose army?" And Aragorn's like, "This army," and they all go running out, and all the ghosts come running out. It's a bit rubbish.
I think that the Army of the Dead, meeting the Army of the Dead, and before that is hampered by, or really kind of just shows the I was just laughing yesterday at the overly theatrical nature of it, which is, first of all, Elrond. I couldn't help but think about Elrond. Elrond shows up on his horse, and I couldn't remember who it was. I was like, it's not Arwen, is it? Is it? Who is it? And obviously it's Elrond, and he's got this plan, and he does it in such a theatrical way, which is unnecessary. Where he's like, I can't remember. It would be better if I could remember the exact lines, but he says something like, well, you should get the Army of the Dead, and so that Aragorn says, but they answer to no man or whatever, and he goes, they answer to a king. I got the sword, I had it the whole time, and I just thought about him on his horse for hours or days, just thinking like, how am I going to get him to do this? And then Aragorn equally goes in with another theatrical. He could just go in and go, I am your king, and I call upon you to answer the oath, or whatever. But instead he's like, hey guys, fancy doing some fighting? They're like, we're not fighting, we're awful. And he's like, I think you might have to fight. And, it's like, it's silly. It's like silly. But
again, you can, the King of Gondor can command me.
Yeah, you mean me?
Or you can imagine them going, how do we make this into a thing? And I think you have to boil it down to that moment of, well, why is Elrond here? Why has he decided to do this now? Because they've changed that around for other reasons. And you have to think of that moment that's going to work on screen and just pay off and make it work. And sometimes it doesn't quite work. But other times in these films, they've done the similar things and it absolutely has landed.
Yeah.
I guess he's kind of saying we're going to cut out this big chunk and we can replace it with a big Elrond thing symbol, and then it's like,
I can't know. It works well enough for me.
It just made the Elrond thing just made me laugh because he's so slow on his horse and he keeps hold of the sword somewhere in his jackets for like ages, and he's just like, no, don't tell him yet. Don't tell him about the sword yet. We'll do a bit. It will be great. And obviously we've missed Arwen sort of coming back. Which I thought was I just find some humor in some of these things. There's the guy who's like, Lady Arwen, where are you going? We can't, and no one else cares. No. She's like, I'm off, and they're all like, well
I'm still going to the Grey Havens.
What made me laugh about that is that they're all like, gently,
yeah, that's right, that's it,
to the harbours
to
get on the ships. Oh, there's a vision of a child, and then she's like, I'm off, actually, I'm going to go. And he's like, we've got to be quick. And I'm like, mate, you are not. She's galloping. Look how fucking quickly she's going back. Yeah. You could all be going that quick.
We cannot delay. We must keep slowly walking to the harbour.
Going at a quarter pace.
To be fair, she can go back, forge a sword, turn around, and catch them up.
Back.
Yeah.
You know who that elf is, by the way?
No.
Do you know who that elf is?
No, I don't.
It's Brett McKenzie from Flight of the Conchords.
No way.
Yeah.
I did not recognise him. That's amazing.
Mate.
Brit.
Arwen, get me a small man's wetsuit.
That's so good.
Really
Arwen, present.
Actually not present.
Not present. I didn't understand, I realised this time, why they have not forged the sword sooner.
They did in the book.
What? And I don't think it doesn't matter. I think
it's because of Aragorn's acceptance of who he is.
Right.
And it's just meted differently. And I think it's also to give the Elrond Arwen like back and forth. Oh, you shouldn't stay. Oh, I'm going to stay. And then his stakes are, in order to protect my daughter, I will help fulfill this coming return of the king.
Right.
I think in the books he just does it at Rivendell straight away.
Right.
And Aragorn is the whole time set on, well, I have a destiny and I am going to go and pursue it. And,
right.
And I think that when you get to the Army of the Dead, it makes more sense. There's this awful thing which he has to do, making this pact with a group of men. And, symbolically, I think it does perhaps speak to the idea of needing alliances with less desirable elements in order to further a broader good. And instead, it's reduced to, I just think it needs more time in the film. I don't wish it wasn't there or anything. I just wish it was handled a bit differently. It's my only big reservation with the film, and it didn't bother me this time as much as it has in other times. So.
Yeah,
no, it's easy to forgive these little moments. I think.
Oh,
when they're sitting in a film like this.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Meanwhile, in Minas Tirith, Faramir is having an unpleasant conversation with his father.
He has.
Where Denethor basically just admits, yes, I wish you had died, and that Boromir had lived.
A bit mean, but also Boromir is so much better in the films than Faramir that I can't really
I think this scene's fantastic. The delivery of both John Noble and David Wenham, so good. You can see the hurt in Faramir's face. You can feel it in his voice.
He's such a little baby, though, isn't he?
Mm.
I bet you wish now that our place was open. And yeah, Denethor's great, but just he's like, okay, I'll go and do it then.
I was right to call you burning madman at the start of this. You're so pro Denethor.
He's got such a whingy little tone as he leaves. If I should return, think better of me. Shut up.
That bit's great.
I don't see much nobility in
pain in his voice.
Faramir. I guess that's my problem.
I don't
his
get
dad's
why
just told him he wishes he was dead.
Yeah, it's pretty.
But he responds to that by going to die. I don't understand that. What's the point in that?
Because where does his allegiance lie if not there?
It's a stubborn dignity.
To Gondor.
Yeah.
Well, he's no use to Gondor if he's dead in Osgiliath.
This is the problem with bad leadership: is that good men must fall on something.
Swords,
of
their
swords of the decisions of their fathers.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's good though.
Well, it is good. Obviously, I do understand it, but I think it's for Faramir, I'm like, come on, man, there's no good over there, and all of them die, like we said, all their heads
Faramir
get
doesn't.
Back. Well, that's true. No, not quite.
Their sacrifice isn't in vain because that scene with the heads is very good.
Yes.
So there is that, isn't there?
Yeah,
but the way Denethor delivers that will depend on the manner of your return. And there's just a very slight hesitation for like half a beat in Faramir's walk as he takes that information in, and then he just walks out. That I love the scene as well where they're all sort of slowly walking on their horses out the gates, and all the peasants. There's so many peasants, aren't there? Just everywhere.
They're just regular people.
And those flipping children, Peter Jackson's children.
Yeah.
They're
They get around.
They're hobbits. They're in the Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
Now they're lining the streets of Gondor, or just throwing flowers in the paths of the soldiers. And there's that one soldier who just takes the flowers. I hope he just holds that until he's shot in the face with an arrow.
None of them survived. A sad scene. What a waste.
Yeah. But we should also just talk about Denethor's meal, which is
Yes. Well, this is
horrible.
Another bit, I guess. If you were to lift out 5 bits. 5 most memorable bits from Return of the King.
Yeah.
The bit where Billy Boyd is singing his sad song and Denethor is disgustingly eating tomatoes and chicken legs.
He really is disgustingly
grapes.
eating them.
It's awful, isn't it? It's really horrible. We spoke in the Fellowship of the Ring episode. I was talking about Brain Dead, and there is a scene in Brain Dead, and I actually didn't say it was a dinner scene, and that's why it's horrible. Where one of the like an old woman is succumbing to the Sumatran rat virus, or whatever, rat monkey, and her ear falls off into a custard, and the guy that they've got over for dinner is oblivious and just eats it and bites into the cartilage of the ear, and it's got like this crunching noise. But this is another kind of Jackson meal. It's so horrible and
There's been
textured.
lots of delicious meals
True,
in
the
the
sausages.
films up
Yes,
until
they
this
have.
point. And this is a very disgusting
juicy
meal.
fish.
I'm not sure exactly what it's for, because Denethor's not like an evil character. He's got lots of problems, and it's like I would associate this kind of scene with someone who I'm supposed to really hate and be like, oh, you're disgusting. And instead, I don't think Denethor is that character, but this scene is that.
The lack of elegance
thing.
and the gluttony in the face of it does make him morally objectionable.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
It's maybe a little too far for me.
I think it is a little bit too far.
It's very famous.
And I think it's just Peter Jackson having an idea. Wouldn't it be good if, whilst that's happening, Billy Boyd singing a song and Denethor was just like, it's gross. And maybe they did one take and Peter Jackson was like, more gross. Can you do it more disgusting, please? And John Noble was okay, well, I'll see what I can do with this tomato. And then maybe there's just he has obviously a clear talent for, I don't know if anyone could recreate that. If someone told you eat this tomato disgustingly, what would you do?
Yeah.
It's perfect.
He has like an amazing ability to just be awful. There's an obliviousness to him.
I think that we should also commend the sound design.
Yes.
There's some sound designers working hard to make it extra horrible.
Yeah.
It's become a verb. I was reading like a discussion about The Substance. Have you seen The Substance?
No.
And in that, Dennis Quaid eats a plate of shrimp in a really disgusting way.
Right.
And someone just said he Denethor'd that shit.
Nice, yeah, that's good.
I've seen it as a Halloween costume.
A tomato.
A tomato. And I can't remember exactly. But yeah, it's a pop culture thing now.
I want to see a Halloween costume which is Denethor with a whole table and chairs and a meal in front of them. They have to walk around like that.
And also there should be a speaker under the table, just of squelching noises.
Yeah, and someone else comes as Pippin, obviously. Just laments everywhere.
It's also something awful, isn't there, about just, the steward on his own in this big hall, eating.
There's no warmth.
All this lovely food that it's just his. I don't know what the regular people of Minas Tirith are eating.
Bread, in it. There's always bread.
But some bread and broth.
Yeah.
But someone's. Where are the grapes coming from?
Yeah, a great expense.
Where are the vineyards? Where are the vineyards in Middle Earth?
Yes, elsewhere. But it is. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's weird leading, isn't it? It's weird, and it's weird that even at the end, I don't want to skip ahead, but like he's clearly not in his right frame of mind. The same thing was happening with Theoden King, and people around are just powerless to really do anything about it. They're just sort of like, well, that's fine.
I think
he just wants to eat. I guess we'll just bring him a nice table.
As Nath alluded to, he is being seduced through the palantir by Sauron,
being diverted,
which isn't in the film.
Diverted in the books, but you would have to say poisoned and seduced in the film version.
It's true.
Except there is no palantir in the theatrical cut.
There's no palantir in the extended cut at all.
Right.
There's no mention of the palantir in Gondor. But that is what's happening.
Yes. But is it, though?
I guess in the film, he's just like, why has his mind gone?
I think in the film, I mean, and this is the thing, when you watch the film, it is a little bit confusing because he's just all I can take from it, as someone who hasn't read the book, so I say this all the time, is that he's just really sad about Boromir being dead, and therefore his line, and obviously he doesn't really love Faramir or thinks Faramir's rubbish.
The obliviousness
he is just like grieving in a very destructive way, because I don't get any sense of Sauron's control or any.
He's emblematic of the whole kind of teetering failure of men, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
But then ultimately he does remember, as Gandalf says. Your father loves you, Faramir. He will remember it
when you're dead. Yes,
he remembers as he is on fire.
Yeah.
Oh, I do love you, Faramir, but I'm on fire now.
I'm going this way.
I better jump off the edge of this bit.
I don't know if he even regrets it. He seems to know exactly where he's not like, put me out, everyone. His
plan is nuts.
Yeah.
His plan is just crazy.
This will look good, won't it? Oh!
It does look
The
good.
leap.
It does look good.
Do you think he had some small respite from the pain of burning?
From the air.
As he
as he hit the
plummeted
ground.
down. Do you think the air rushing past him would have cooled him off a little bit?
Oh, that's nice.
I watched, and he goes all the way. He's still flaming. I think that it would have just added extra oxygen.
In 4K, I really appreciated that I saw Denethor for longer than I think I've ever seen him. That little fiery speck.
I did the same thing. You could have, like those psychological experiments where like a gorilla walks past and you don't notice it. That could have happened. You know about this? Where they tell you, like, just how many times does the ball go through the hoop? And you watch the ball go through the hoop and you go 20 times. And they go, did you see the gorilla? And you watch it again. They go, watch it again. And a gorilla's just been, like, wandering past.
What is this? Like, so how long can you see Denethor for? How many orcs were there?
My point was, like, that I watched Denethor fall the whole way down. So anything else could be going on in that frame. There could be, like, Frodo chucking the ring into the fire and to one side. But I'm just watching his little burning corpse all the way down to see where he hits.
I was struck by how much of the film, like I was saying, the editing, it's got to show a lot of things that are quite similar. So they're fighting in Osgiliath and they come back and then they have to go back to Osgiliath. And I think that's the Denethor scene is a lovely way where we won't have any sound of this fighting. We'll just have sad singing and tomatoes. And it's a classic way to show a battle.
Some great orc faces here as well, as they're aiming the arrows.
And they all pop out of their little... That's the weirdness again of like, it makes it video gamey. Like they're in this shell of a city. What are they doing? Well, they're just standing behind these walls ready to pop up to shoot arrows at these lads who are coming across the plains. And then Faramir comes back and it's all very sad. And this is all kind of like, it's like a montage on Super Sunday. You just waiting for the actual game to start. Do you know what I mean? The actual game is the Battle of Pelennor Fields. It's like, and here's what the orcs have been doing last time they met in Osgiliath.
Absolutely destroyed them.
Crushing win.
I get a real sense of they just can't believe their luck, the orcs.
Yeah.
They're just like, look at this.
Yeah, some heads.
Great. What are they doing?
Some heads
the
are
idiots.
themselves.
There's a few, and I do think that there is like some great humour in the orcs. In the midst of battles, I really appreciate it.
Some of them are having a great time, and who is having a better time than the guys who are steering the Oliphants? Those guys,
they love it. Left, right.
There's one guy though who looks really just anxious and worried the whole time, and it's the one who's driving the Oliphant that Legolas ends up killing. There's a couple of shots to his face. He says, "Oh God, what's happening down there?"
Who's that guy? Anyone know who that guy is?
Look, I'm just trying to drive, lads. Will you shoot?
Maybe you could do like what was the thingy Star Wars, the plasticine Star Wars.
Oh.
And you could do like a day in the life of that guy. It's his first day
Robot
driving.
Chicken.
Robot Chicken. His first day driving an Oliphant.
Yeah.
So, hope nothing goes wrong. I hear it's going to be a bit of a walkover today. This should be fine.
See him get his license.
His proud parents. Comes from a long line of Oliphants.
Parallel park and Oliphant and a hillside.
He's one of my favourites. There's obviously the evil one who's like, ooh, yeah.
He's such good value, that guy.
He is great.
Yeah.
We've skipped ahead a lot.
We really have.
Yeah.
Sorry, those guys really cheer me up. We haven't even talked about, not really, Shelob.
Yes, yes.
Who deserves a mention because I again, having not read the books at the end, you know, of the Two Towers, when Gollum's talking about she'll do it. I was like, oh God, what is she? And
Gollum's very confident that he's not going to be stung and eaten by.
Well, I think I get the sense that Gollum has been through this cave a few times. He knows his way around Mordor. He knows how to get through. You just don't get stuck in the web.
Yeah,
and you're probably going to be fast enough to get out of there. Gollum knows what he's doing.
I kind of always felt like they had like a sort of an affinity with one, like an arrangement. Yeah, like a hey,
I'll bring you some orcs.
Yeah,
would you leave me alone?
And she does do a terrible job of killing Frodo at first.
She's not. I guess she's not dead at the end, right?
No.
It would be terrible because she is supposed to be like an old creature of a different order who manifests as a big spider.
Well, I believe Shelob was the daughter of Ungoliant, who wasn't originally a spider, was one of, I can't remember exactly, this is in the Silmarillion, but she takes the form of a spider and ends up, I think, for some reason, taking the form of a spider permanently, and then has lots of spider children, one of which is Shelob.
Fair. Well, that makes perfect sense.
Not originally a spider.
No.
It does make my skin crawl.
Just a little bio, like on Twitter. Shelob, not originally a spider.
Well, you've made comment before on how in Shadow of Mordor they turn her into a sexy woman.
Oh yeah, of course they do.
That's because they read the Silmarillion.
They were
like,
Silmarillion.
Yeah,
Ungoliant. Oh, maybe Ungoliant was a sexy woman.
There are some great decisions in those games, and it's really fun to be in that world sometimes. And their orcs are brilliant value, but the Balrog and the Shelob stuff I could do without.
What's the Balrog stuff?
Well, I told you, I've mentioned it in a previous podcast. There is a scene when you're in like a mine, and there's a Balrog, and then there's another Balrog.
Oh yeah, he did.
And you ride
Balrog,
and it's like any game where you're on the back of a really big thing, and you're like you pull it. It's like Ratatouille. You pull its hair, and it does like a punch.
Yeah,
it's like that, but with the Balrog.
Yes. What was the first game that did that? God of War's the first one I remember doing it.
Yeah, that's fun. That's within the tone of God of War for sure.
Yeah, you can't do that. Not with like a Balrog, which is feels unique.
And
feels like
a foe that is beyond all of you.
You get to ride one.
A foe that's beyond all of you, except for that ranger a few hundred years ago.
Yeah.
Unless you could get on its head.
That's why Gandalf should have come back, just riding, just pulling its hair this way and that way to make it walk.
We're back to Oliphant drivers again.
We
now.
are, yeah.
Oh, Balrog. Shelob is really horrible.
You hate spiders,
I do. I hate them a little bit less than I have, but only more like house spiders. I've become better at dealing with house spiders. Right. I wouldn't do well with Shelob. No. And I really think that it's, they really capture, it's a little, she's a little bit grotesque and monstrous when up close, but I really appreciate the sort of stealthy spider
scuttling
stuff. The completely silent movement as well when she's actually going to inject Frodo with her venom, and she's completely silent. This massive thing, and that's just how spiders are.
That scene is great.
Choose to move completely silently.
It's the bit where you just see the front of her just appear above Frodo. The legs come out.
Yeah,
it's so.
It's almost
horrible.
Underneath him, and she ends up right above him.
Yeah.
And her movement is so realistic. I don't know if they motion captured a real giant spider.
Yeah.
But it's really... And then...
Get the ping pong balls on the spider.
That's a terrible job.
My question is, where do you think she stings Frodo? His noises go...
Stomach.
Yeah,
it's in the stomach somewhere.
Is he wearing his mithril? So
I wondered about that.
Maybe it's in his ball bag,
maybe
because that actually goes down quite a long way, doesn't it? The mithril. So maybe in the thigh,
in the knee.
Yeah, maybe in the
on the kneecap.
Took a spider sting to
below the mithril.
Yeah,
no one wants to be hit below the mithril.
Maybe he should be dead, but yeah,
that was a good impression, by the way.
Spider sting to the knee.
It's such a good noise. That's what, if you ever meet Elijah Wood.
I should have asked him. I should have asked him for a selfie. And also, can you do the noise you did when you got stung by
I thought you were going to say,
head?
Where exactly were you stung?
Yeah, where were you stung?
By Shelob. You know when you were stung?
Can you do the saliva thing? Can you do it now?
I find the just the little bits of, I don't know what they are on his face when Sam comes to rescue him.
They look like little bits of mud or something.
The green bits. They're sort of more brown than green.
They look like
they upset me every time.
Just a little bit of Shelob juice.
They look like larval.
It's just horrible.
Almost.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. I mean, I don't like the idea of being cocooned. I love the way that she catches him as well. She catches him so deftly.
There's
and then
one
just
in bruised.
immediately...
It's like if you've got a banana, you don't want to drop the banana.
Yeah, oops, I'll take that. And yeah, cocoons him up. It's I really do like that scene. I do think that if I was Gollum, I'd be really annoyed. He seems quite happy when Frodo comes back out, and he's like, "Oh well, I'll just do it then. I'm just done with this now." She didn't really do much of a job, but
got away, did it, precious?
Yeah,
and he gets thrown over.
Yeah,
and we all think, "Oh, Gollum's dead now."
Yeah. If anyone can survive a fall like that, probably is Gollum.
Yeah.
Bit of subtle foreshadowing, isn't it? Just the falling down the chasm.
Yeah, didn't think about that.
Keeps coming back.
Yeah. Oh, so you're saying he might not be dead still?
I almost certainly alive. There's probably going to be a game about it, Dave. Yeah. Don't you worry.
There is a little bit here that I also really enjoy every time, and for some reason makes me emotional. And it's when Frodo, he falls. And all of a sudden, it's like he's in Lothlorien again.
Yeah.
And Galadriel just helps him up.
We've not
just
seen
a lovely little bit.
We've not seen anything green for a really long time at that point. It's really nice.
It's just a really nice way, I think, of, again, I really appreciate how Jackson shows the magic of things and the magic of certain beings. It's not always, I mean, most of the time, it's not fireworks and fire. There's just a subtlety here. Like, is this in Frodo's imagination? Is he dredging up some kind of last remaining bit of willpower and determination from somewhere? Or is this genuinely the magic of Galadriel helping Frodo in a time of desperate need? Either way, I think it's great. I love that moment so much.
Same.
Frodo's face when he goes from all is lost, utter despair. Then you see... Elijah was so good at doing this. Facial expressions. Okay, and now all of a sudden, I need you to look really determined and take Galadriel's hand. And that edit where she hoists him up, then it cuts to him in reality, just almost having been just pulled up off the floor by some kind of supernatural presence.
To skip it forward again, it's the biggest turnaround, apart from on Mount Doom itself. After Gollum attacks them, and like you see a few seconds of Sam scrapping, and he turns around and goes, "Miss Frodo," and like having been like, "You've got to carry me, Sam." I can't know. Suddenly he's fucking sprinting up the mountain, just like, "Come on, let's go."
They both Frodo and Sam go through stages of just. There's something else, like, as Gandalf says early in the Fellowship of the Ring. You know, there are other forces in this world beyond that of evil, and there is like a. There is always the sense that there is some other will at play. And I know, I do remember in the books that Frodo and Sam both have just inexplicable bursts of renewed energy and motivation during those moments. I think the way it can go from all is lost, you've lost it, you've got nothing left, to all of a sudden there is some energy there.
A little burst.
I mean, Sam, when he literally lifts Frodo up.
That bit's great.
I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Oh, what a moment.
It's Sam's film, this one.
It is Sam's film.
He comes good in all the right. He fights, Shelob, obviously.
Well, we haven't even talked about him.
Fights 3 orcs.
Going up the tower. There's a whole bit, and to rescue Frodo, and that's where you almost teetering on the edge of, oh, really? But that's I think it's pitched really well. Can't kill Shelob, but you could probably get in a jab.
Yeah,
and then get past, and he doesn't kill her, which is it's okay.
Exactly. Yeah, he makes her annoyed enough and scared enough of it. Both, and also he's got Elven, he's got Sting, and he's got the light of Elendil.
That is true.
He's also got a lot of anger.
Yeah,
he does.
This is for the Shire. This is for Frodo.
Do you know what this scene always reminds me of? Me and my housemates used to watch the Action Force movie at university, and there's a bit where Sergeant Slaughter, I can't remember which one he is, but anyway, he's from WWE, and he's like doing elbow drops on a bad guy, and he says, this is for, I can't remember, it's one of the characters that this person's killed.
Right.
This is for Action Force. This is for me. Sam always reminds me of that. That's for the Shire. That's for my old gaffer.
Yeah.
It's a great moment in the, and you say it's Sam's film, and I think it's, Sam really is as prominent in the book and it's certainly in the radio adaptation where he's Bill Nighy, and I was like, Bill Nighy's got this tiny part in this BBC radio adaptation, but it's actually like at the end, because obviously on the radio you can't just show things happening. Someone has to be talking the whole time, so he's kind of narrating his whole way through this, and he's talking about how brave he has to be and how strong he has to be. And I think the orcs are whispering about they come and see all the dead bodies in the tower, and they're like, there must be an elven lord who's come to attack us.
Yeah.
And I think that's like in the film, that's represented by just them seeing the shadow with the two blades.
I like
thinking,
that.
Who's this?
I was struck for the first time by just his, I guess, intelligence. It's not especially intelligent, and stout-heartedness to take the ring from Frodo when the orcs are coming. And he's paralyzed, and I hadn't really thought about it before. Just that, you know, he thinks, what am I going to do? And I had always just thought I'll just follow Frodo and I'll go and save him. Yeah. But what I actually think is there's a chance I won't be able to do that, and there's a bigger thing here, and it's the ring, and I'm going to take it off of him, even though this is big. He'll hate that I've done this. I'm going to take the ring. I think I can do it, and then if he is killed, if I can't rescue him, there's still the hope.
Then I will take it myself.
And I will take it, which is probably quite foolhardy, but a nice thought and a quick thinking as well, which I hadn't appreciated in all my previous watches.
And I like the way they don't show it, because he would have had to have put his hands down that big sticky web cocoon. Where is it? Quickly!
Yeah.
Is it in his pocket? Is it around his neck?
Yeah.
And just, ripped it off.
Yeah.
Again, some great orchage here.
Oh, really good.
Great orcs.
The best orcs.
Looks like Shelob's been having a bit of fun.
Yeah. They do like clicking, creaking noises with their mouths somehow, like knocking teeth. It's great. And then
This fellow ain't dead.
I love that we see like another civil war as well, or whatever you'd call it. The second one. They're just teetering on the edge of
They just love it.
fighting all the time.
They just love it. I love the face of the one after the main one has been kicked down the ladder.
Yeah.
And all of the broth, the war broth, gets spilled everywhere. There's that one orc who has like he's got a really horrible pointy face, and he's just like, are we fighting? Let's fight! He's just so into it. It's any excuse to have a bit of a scrap. And I just love the one who kicks it. The scum tried to knife me.
Yeah.
I know how to start a fight. You just say anything to them. We all know kids at school, right? Who you could basically just wind up, point in a direction. And be like, go! So-and-so said this about you. That's what the orcs are like.
They are. Yeah. It's great. Really enjoyable. And then I've also had a little bit of comic relief in them. Let's find you some clothes, and then cut to them in orc armor, like ridiculous orc armor, walking over a bridge.
That's so video gamey, so RPG. You've woken up, you've lost all your gear.
Yeah.
And you're just walking around, orc shirt, orc helm.
Yeah.
Equip
the prison. Hey Rob, in the extended version, because on the gate of the tower, there are two watchers, and they're kind of described in the book as kind of like having bird-like faces, but they've got some kind of magical property. And I noticed this time in the theatrical cut, Sam notices them, and again, it's a nice thing of they're there, but they obviously haven't done the whole thing. But they exert a will, and they stop him from going inside. I don't know if that's shown in more detail.
No, I don't believe so.
And he needs the light of Elendil to get past them in and out. It's just like it's again very video gamey. It's like you just come up against, release your friend from prison, but how will you get past the watchers?
Yeah.
It's like, have you use the light of Elendil?
Yeah.
Correct.
Try lembas bread. Try
coin.
Yeah, mithril. Coin.
Rope. I'm trying my rope.
Frying pan.
Yeah. I think we should probably get to the battle.
I think I've been trying not to. I've been hesitant to get to the battle because it's so big.
It's big, and I don't know how we'll tackle it.
There are loads of stages, right? Like it goes on for a long time before we get to the bit that I would actually consider the bit where it's the battle.
It's like a massive curry.
The siege. Yeah, so the poppadoms are when the catapults start going over.
Yes.
So I guess the first bit is
Release the prisoners.
and the heads of the Faramir's company are catapulted into the city.
The orc captain looks a bit like a poppadom. I know that the legend is that he's based on Harvey Weinstein.
Yes.
But he does also look a bit like a poppadom.
A bit like a poppadom with some, yogurt.
Yeah, just dripped in one.
Ready to be snaffled. When does Denethor come and finally see all the...
I think
that lays before him? Is it
it's
before any
here.
fighting has started?
So the catapults have started, I believe, and Denethor, that's when he looks over the parapet. And this is Gandalf's moment as well. I love this. Like Gandalf's brilliant in this film as well. He's just doing stuff all the time. He's just like, okay, I've got to use my full Gandalf the White power now. And he uses some magic from his staff, and he uses his ability to motivate and what would you call it?
Lead.
Inspire.
Inspire.
Inspire the men. And I love, Denethor has told them all to flee and abandon their posts. Flee. And then Gandalf's like, I'm going to have to do this now. And then just him riding around.
Yeah.
It's so, I would fight for him. My God.
Yeah.
If I was running away and Gandalf rode past me on his horse, stand your ground. I'd do anything Gandalf told me to do.
Yeah.
This is the final realization of his mission, of why he's been sent to Middle-earth. It's funny because I've grown to thinking of him a bit like an angel, and because that's kind of like how he fits in the order of the universe. And he's such an interventionist angel. You know what I mean? Angels are normally everyone's mysterious. Oh, and his power was wielded by calmly manipulating events, and here he's like, everyone fight, and he's just twatting people with staffs, and he's really good at fighting.
Yeah,
he's getting stuck in.
Yeah,
I love his line, send these foul beasts into the abyss.
Yes.
And that means fire some catapults back at them. And then obviously we get the great bit where Harvey is like, stay where you are. And then he sees that one coming towards him, just dodges it at the last minute.
This is all, having mentioned WWE, this is all like a great work, like where they're building up that character. He's mean all the way through the film. He's not scared of anything. And it's all so that they can get over the Rohirrim when they come, and he's like, yeah, we're going to beat the Rohirrim. And then as they get closer and closer, the shots of him looking more and more scared are so powerful. They're really good. Yes, be scared.
Does he have a name? Is he a named character?
Steve.
Of course, he doesn't actually die there in the extended edition.
Oh.
We see him later on when Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli join the battle.
Gimli was somewhere else.
Gimli.
We don't talk about Gimli.
It's pronounced Jiff. But he fights Éowyn. Éowyn is fighting him. This is obviously before she fights the Witch King. And Éowyn is losing. And then Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli all just run, and it's amazing. They all take a bit off him. Oh. They all just run. It's like they just run. They're doing a different thing. It's like their scene is happening elsewhere. It's great. They all just run past. I think Gimli gives him some with the axe, Legolas with a bit of knife, and then Aragorn comes and just cuts both his arms off, and then just puts him through the. Oh, it's so good.
Blimey.
It's like to those three, he's just another orc.
Yeah.
Right.
And
they're on a different power level.
They're like, yeah, exactly. It's like the Saiyans are off doing the main story, and here we've got Krillin and Yamcha, and they've got to try and protect Earth from, some rubbish baddies.
Dave doesn't know what.
I don't know. I'm just smiling politely. Also, I think that the city has trebuchets. Just needed to say it.
Trebuchets,
they're
sorry.
great trebuchets.
They're great trebuchets.
I'm not sure that those towers could actually bear the weight of the forces going through those trebuchets, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm also not sure that the walls would crumble so easily.
I was wondering the same thing.
Just with a rock.
They are shattered. Some of those
they really are.
Yeah, it's quite quick.
It's just a rock.
The rock has the will of Sauron in it, though, I guess. Just evil rocks.
Yeah.
I also just everything about it. The trolls are there, hauling these massive towers. Gandalf has to tell the Gondor soldiers, don't shoot arrows at the towers, you fucking idiots. Shoot them at the trolls. Aim for the trolls.
I guess he means don't shoot the orcs on the towers. I guess that's what he's saying. If any of them are shooting the wood, they should be kicked out of the army.
There's quite a lot of them shooting the wood, let me tell you.
They should be shooting those trolls from... He says it way too late, though. It's like the ladder's going to be here in 3 seconds. It's too late to take down a troll now.
So we have... I can't even remember what we're cutting away to. I guess a bit of Shelob. But so there's just scenes and scenes. It's getting worse and worse. Then Grond. They get Grond.
Oh, Grond,
The battering ram named after the...
I was gonna bring this
the
up.
Hammer of the Underworld? That's originally Grond.
Don't know.
And that's why it's called Grond. Grond is a huge meme now. People flipping love
Grond. I'm not sure about Grond.
Grond.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Right, now I get it. Grond. Well, the thing that upsets me about Grond is obviously that it's on fire.
It's got a cauldron inside it.
But I want it to do something. I assumed...
It batters down the door.
No, but it doesn't need fire to do that. This is the point. What I thought was going to happen, every time I watch it, I think this is going to happen. I think it's going to batter down the door, and then it's going to turn into a flamethrower and just chuck flames through the door.
To be fair,
it just sits there going...
It does sound like something Peter Jackson would do.
Yeah, I just want to know what...
It shoots fire out of its mouth.
Yeah. I don't know why they've gone to the trouble of putting a cauldron inside a battering ram if they're not going to...
Because it looks cool.
It does look cool, but,
I love
it's an intimidation tactic, you could say, from the orcs. How can we make this look more scary?
The lads love
But who are you
Grond.
scaring? The gate?
Can I also draw attention to the troll-sized drums?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Whoever the drum makers are in Mordor.
Yeah. How big?
Maybe they're making
really
their
well.
own drums. Maybe they've got a long history of drum making.
Yeah.
I love the idea that in wherever they are, the barracks of Mordor, when they're building Grond, it's named after, like I said, the Hammer of the Underworld. It's used by Morgoth years ago. Morgoth,
The super bad guy.
super bad guy.
Yeah.
And,
Sauron's boss.
Yeah.
and imagine they're like, what should we call it? We'll call it Grond. And should we have it on so fire comes out of his mouth? Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah. And they're all so excited. Grond.
Yeah.
Grond.
Why are we doing the fire though? It
just looks cool.
Just
doesn't
do it.
The men hate it.
Yeah.
Grond.
It is super cool. I just want the fire to come to fruition. That's all. I just like it's right there, guy, and it would be so cool. Just like now, turn it into a flamethrower, because that would be the best way to take down a castle. You batter down the gate, like that's
Yeah, but
that's
if they
something.
have flamethrowers, this would be a different battle anyway. Do you know what I mean? They'll
Well,
be like,
yeah, I know.
But they don't have flamethrowers.
They just have a flaming battering ram.
Well, that's because they could just have like a brazier full of coals in there. Do you know what I mean?
It's so extra heavy and dangerous. It's just silly. Silliness. Wouldn't happen in my army.
Dave would be there, the one orc who's not chanting Grond.
Yeah, exactly.
Why has it got flames in its mouth?
What
They'd
is
have to
Grond?
pour-
Shut up!
great.
Shut up, Dave! Just chant.
And then Gandalf
Grond.
could like summon like some rain, and it would put Grond out.
I'm not
That
sure
would
you
be
can
great.
summon
Don't think
Great
Gandalf
scene.
can
Not
do
a
that.
brain guy.
Oh, you can do it.
No.
Yeah, you can do it. Well, just to get people to get a big vat of water. Then you go and get the water.
Throw tomatoes at
Bring
it.
forth the water.
Yeah, although what a scene that would have been. Should we have that scene with the water? Should we do a...
And all the Grond
No,
people
Peter,
are sad.
that sounds like a terrible
Boo,
idea.
Grond. Anyway, we should talk about Grond.
Yeah,
way too much.
We've
and
gronded.
it's barely in the movie, but
That's great as well when Gandalf tells everyone to stand your ground. No matter what comes through that gate, you stand your ground. And then, of course, some massive armoured trolls come through the gate.
Yeah,
and Gandalf has like one brief moment where he's like, oh, shit. But then it's like, attack! Do it! And they just fight anyway.
I really put myself in the position of one of those guys. I saw a guy who's just immediately destroyed. Yeah. And I was just like, I just thought that would be me. And maybe I'd be okay with that. I stood my ground.
It's really
it was
tough.
pointless, but
It's really tough. You know, that when you see you just think, am I going to be the one guy after the 30 guys have been squashed?
Yeah.
Or am I one of the 30 guys?
maybe if I can angle my sword just right as he obliterates me, I'll
I can
scratch it
hurt him
slightly.
a little bit.
When does the Rohirrim arrive in the battle? Because it feels like it's a brilliant bit.
It's
2:45.
Yes.
So I think they do a great job of allowing this battle to play out and get worse and worse and worse. They're breaking through. They've got through the gate. Gandalf is shouting at people to retreat, fall back to to the next level.
The towers with the ladders or the grabbers have arrived.
Pippin's had his heroic moment where he saves Gandalf. And then is told to go back.
Yeah.
And then Pippin, he goes off and sees Denethor ready to burn himself and Faramir alive. So that's all going on. It's a slightly different moment in the extended edition because the one main bit they cut out of the theatrical edition is Gandalf's encounter with the Witch King. And I'm glad they cut it out because it's silly. Because Gandalf would never lose to the Witch King.
It's contentious.
Does he? Yeah. Does he lose to the Witch King?
Or very considerably, yeah.
All right, okay.
Like the Witch King just breaks his staff.
Right.
Which is why he doesn't have his staff for the remainder of the film.
Yeah.
So that bit gets cut out. There's a great reaction shot of Gandalf in the theatrical version, when he hears the horns of Rohan for the first time. And he's like, oh. But in the extended edition, that is a reaction to Pippin running down saying, Gandalf!
Right.
Denethor's lost his mind, he's burning Faramir alive. And then I love the edit. They use that same look. I can see them in the editing room now. How can we got that scene out. How can we can use this scene where, and I don't know if maybe it wasn't originally filmed.
No.
Maybe it was just, okay, Ian, we need you to look.
That's
we need
true.
you to just do a reaction.
What if it's the other way around?
Yeah,
what if it's
exactly.
like, well, we need a shot of him reacting to Pippin coming down these stairs.
Yeah, and he nailed it.
We've got that shot from the horn.
It's very deliberately when Gandalf is fighting the Witch King in the extended edition, he's on the floor about to be killed by the Witch King, and that is when you hear the horns in the extended edition because the Witch King reacts to it as well. Gandalf reacts to it and flies off. So that was originally when Gandalf reacted to the horns of Rohan arriving.
Right.
So they've used a different shot, and I think it works better in the theatrical version.
Same.
Yeah.
The arrival is amazing. The scene is amazing. Theoden just being in his element.
It's the greatest bit of film, maybe in anything ever, I think.
We've peaked as a podcast with this moment.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
we won't
this.
watch anything better than this.
I've seen it a lot of times, and I probably haven't enjoyed it as much as this since the very first time I watched it.
Yeah.
Heart was in my mouth, and I was noticing things I hadn't noticed before. I love how Theoden orders his commanders to different places, and there's a bit of tactics at the beginning.
God,
he's just so in charge.
Yes.
And they took away a bit of his authority at Helm's Deep and the Hornburg. In the book, he's more the person leading that. He says to Aragorn, let's ride out. It's not Aragorn saying it.
Right.
And in this, there's some follow-up lines of, like, everyone knows secretly it was you, Aragorn, who led us to victory. Thanks for doing that. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And this, in the films, this is even more of a payoff for Theoden.
Yeah.
And shouts a massive poem about red skies, shouts death. That scene is, I remember watching that in the cinema, just touching his sword point to all the spears.
I've never seen anything like it. And it, unfortunately for Viggo Mortensen, it makes his little rallying speech at the end seem a bit shit.
It's hard,
in comparison. Even though I think Viggo Mortensen does a fine job, and he's probably there on the day thinking, yeah, I nailed that. That's really good and inspiring. But Jesus Christ, Bernard Hill. Like, what was he on that day? It's unreal what he's doing. There's a way he just says, when he's telling Éomer, take your Éomer down the left flank, and he says to Gamling, forth and fear no darkness. And just, if Theoden told me to fear no darkness, I would charge anywhere. It's okay. I don't have to be afraid. King Theoden is with me. This King Theoden has told me.
So
to
would
do
you
this.
rather be ordered around by Gandalf or King Theoden?
I think Theoden.
Wow.
In this scene, this is his moment.
This is
so
his
good.
moment.
And it's such a payoff. And there's that scene. There's that scene of them when they start to charge, and just how fast the horses want to go, and how fast Theoden wants to meet them on the field. It's so good. Are you about to talk about Tolkien reading this thing?
I've got it.
I could see it in your eyes.
I want to play it. This is one of my favourite things.
I don't think me and Rob
heard.
have spoken about this since we both saw it on the internet about 2 years ago, but I thought I could just see it in his little face.
So he knew. So I don't know if you know aware of this, Dave. There's an excerpt of Tolkien reading this scene from the book with the music from the film playing over the top.
Oh.
And it's amazing. And it shows the transition from Theoden from old man into, like we've talked about this notion of kingliness and men and kings being more than men, and there's a real sense of the divine about Theoden in this bit, which I love.
Now silently the host of Rohan moved forward into the field of Gondor, pouring in slowly but steadily like the rising tide through breaches in a dike that men have thought secure. But the mind and will of the black captain were bent wholly on the falling city, and as yet no tidings came to him warning that his designs held any flaw. After a while the king led his men away somewhat eastward, to come between the fires of the siege and the outer fields. Still they were unchallenged, and still Theoden gave no signal. At last he halted once again. The city was now nearer. The smell of burning was in the air, and a very shadow of death. The horses were uneasy, but the king sat upon Snowmane, motionless, gazing upon the agony of Minas Tirith, as if stricken suddenly by anguish or by dread. He seemed to shrink down, cowed by age. Merry himself felt as if a great weight of horror and doubt had settled on him. His heart beat slowly. Time seemed poised in uncertainty. They were too late. Too late was worse than never. Perhaps Theoden would quail, bow his old head, turn, slink away to hide in the hills. Then suddenly Merry felt it at last, beyond doubt, a change. Wind was in his face. Light was glimmering. Far, far away in the south the clouds could be dimly seen as remote grey shapes rolling up, drifting. Morning lay beyond them. But at that same moment was a flash, as if lightning had sprung from the earth beneath the city. For a searing second it stood dazzling far off in black and white, its topmost tower like a glittering needle. And then as the darkness closed again, there came rolling over the fields a great boom. At that sound the bent shape of the king sprang suddenly erect. Tall and proud he seemed again, and rising in his stirrups he cried in a loud voice more clear than any there had ever heard a mortal man achieve before, "Arise, arise, riders of Theoden! Fell deeds awake, fire and slaughter! Spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered, sword day, red day ere the sun rises! Ride now, ride to Gondor!" With that he seized a great horn from Guzlar his banner-bearer, and he blew such a blast upon it that it burst asunder. And straightway all the horns in the host were lifted up in music, and the blowing of the horns of Rohan in that hour was like a storm upon the plain, and a thunder in the mountains. Ride now, ride to Gondor! Suddenly the king cried to Snowmane, and the horse sprang away. Behind him his banner blew in the wind, white horse upon a field of green, but he outpaced it. After him thundered the knights of his house, but he was ever before them. Elmer rode there, the white horse tail on his helm, floating in his speed. On the front of the first Aelred roared like a breaker foaming to the shore, but Theoden could not be overtaken. Fey he seemed, nor the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins. And he was borne up on Snowmane like a god of old, even as Orome the Great in the battle of the Valar when the world was young. His golden shield was uncovered, and lo, it shone like an image of the sun, and the grass flamed into green above the white feet of his steed. For morning came, morning in a wind from the sea, and darkness was removed, and the hosts of Mordor wailed, and the terror overtook them, and they fled and died, and the hoofs of wrath rode over them. And then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them, and the sound of their singing that was fair and terrible came even to the city.
Oh, it's so good, and so much about it that I love. And you know, I feel like I read that when I was a kid, and I liked it. But then you see it in the film, and then you read it again, or you listen to him, and the words mean more and more, and the things can act like they amplify each other. I love the idea of blowing on a horn so hard it bursts.
Yes,
yeah, that would sound rubbish, probably, wouldn't it?
Just sort of.
I've always been fascinated by the idea of spears being shaken. I know this is a thing. It's just that's all you can do with a spear. It's just sort of like wang it around. Just like,
and he wanged his spear around. He's got the clearest voice that any man had achieved, Dave.
Yeah.
Are you not impressed?
So, in a way, because Aragorn in the movies kind of led the Rohirrim to just led the victory at Helm's Deep, you could say that this is the return of the king.
Oh,
couldn't you?
You could.
Theoden is back
I love that you see from Merry's point of view. Just he's kind of like you get there and he's devastated at what he can see in Gondor, and there's a moment of shadow and doubt, and then he's like, "Nah, fuck these guys."
I think I found that really powerful. Like the in the film, Merry on the horse, everyone's looking a bit scared, and then everyone's just like well up for it, and it makes total sense. I could totally understand that position, being like, yeah, let's do it. I don't even care what happens. Yeah. Let's do it. This is the right thing to do, and I want to fight.
Where did Rob? You might know. Where did the shouting death come from? Because he doesn't say that in the book. Obviously, we just heard it.
I don't know where it comes from. Maybe just someone thinking it was a good idea to say it.
Yeah.
I noticed watching the film that literally you see the clouds parting and the sun coming out, literally as they're about to charge down.
And he does outpace his standard bearer.
He does, and Merry notices in the book. Merry notices like a flash of morning, and morning was beyond the clouds or something like that.
That description and hearing Tolkien read it is intimidating. The idea of how do we recreate this? And we had just previously talked about how amazing Bernard Hill was, but that is what it takes to capture something of a mythical rising into an occasion.
Yeah,
probably the best moment in all of the films.
I think so.
We should just
pretty good.
Nothing else. We should stop here.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, I love Éomer's face as well. Like the joy of battle is in Éomer's face.
It's screaming face. Sure.
Like you would be shitting your pants if you were an orc and saw that running. And indeed they are. And there's a fantastic bit, isn't it? Well, Harvey is trying to get all his orcs lined up.
Yeah.
Form ranks, you maggots.
Yeah.
Archers behind, pikes in front, archers behind. And he's like, the first two fire commands. He's like, okay. And then when it goes to fire at will, you're like, oh yeah, you're fucked, mate.
Desperation.
It's so good. And then his face just falls, and the realization dawns. And in the theatrical version, this is his end.
I love, what is it that they fled and died?
They fled and died, yeah. They fled and died in terror. There's like and I love how it's the orcs just fleeing for their lives and in utter terror.
A rout.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been so long since I read the books, but I don't know if then the Oliphants came, and there's that moment. It's brilliant in the book. It kind of undercuts that charge, but then they're wrecking the lines, and then there's obviously reinforcements from the Southron or the Easterlings or whoever they are who've got the big animals, and it's just the worst. They're so much bigger than the horses. It's horrible to watch.
But again, we've just had probably the greatest cavalry charge ever seen. And then there's just another one. Like 5 minutes later, Theoden's like, let's do it again. Just free foot, let's go. Take them head on, let's do it. That bit is so good. My God, that shot is incredible.
And again, we talk about storytelling, when we were talking about Helm's Deep storytelling in action scenes.
Yeah.
And I think that the scenes, there's so much detail and specificity in how the Oliphants are taken down, and then as the minutes go past, how many arrows they've got in their legs, and what's going to get them to the ground. Oh, it's so good.
Aim for the heads, Éomer says.
Yeah.
Also, you can aim for the drivers.
That's
that
true.
Shot. It's and again, little pockets of. We're focusing on for about maybe 90 screen seconds. We're focusing on that horrible driver.
Yes.
Who's like just really enjoying.
He's really loving it.
Stamping on horses with his Oliphant. Ooh. And it's Éomer. He takes him out with a spear.
Like that, the single shot, I would say, has made an entire career for Urban. Like what a hero shot that is.
Yeah.
That's not in the film. He's that guy. He did a good face, didn't he, in the battle? But that shot is unbelievable. It's so good. I mean, like behind him as he brings his spear up, looking at the Oliphant.
They should have just built a little cockpit. I think.
Yeah.
They spent all the
notes.
all the big thoughts went on Grond. I know. I know, like,
we can't protect the Oliphant Riders. We're making Grond.
They're from a different place.
I know. They're from a different place. It was just a silly aside. And we've missed two of my favourite orcs in this movie, who are when Theoden first charges in. By the way, there's just two. I can't even really describe them to you. There's one who goes, there's one who fires an arrow. Who's like, yeah. And they're loving it for like a few seconds, and then we see them both in a few moments' time. Go,
there's one with a face that's great. Just like, shit.
But the Oliphant's obviously the best takedown of an Oliphant. Belongs to Legolas.
It didn't annoy me as much this time.
It didn't annoy me as much this time as well. The thing that's always really annoyed me is the sliding down the trunk. Like I feel like the rest of it is pretty okay. He's deft. He climbs up the arrow shafts.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. And then he's fighting everyone on top. I think this is all okay.
It all sort of hangs together just about physically.
The trunk thing is just a bit. He doesn't need to do that. Just stand on top. And he's still going to be fine. Just wait for it to fall over and then just step off. Yeah. Don't do your stupid surfing. But I did find it the least offensive this time that I've ever found.
It's the driver. It's the driver of that Oliphant. I just love him so much. He's just helpless. Yeah. He's terrified, and he's also quite annoyed with everyone on where the heck is everyone? And then off he goes.
Yeah.
2 arrows under the skull. Does for that Oliphant.
Yeah,
that's where
I felt a bit sorry for it.
It's got to be taken down.
Yeah, I know. I know it had to happen, but I do feel a little bit sad for it.
And then Army of the Dead pop up pretty much straight away.
We've got to talk about Gimli's line.
Well, we've got to talk about Theoden being underneath isn't he underneath an Oliphant?
Slightly undignified death, isn't it? I mean, he's done very, very well. I guess he's taken out the Orc army and then the Oliphant army.
Yeah.
So he's done well.
I mean, he seems thrilled with it.
I'd love it if it could be so different if, as the Witch King, his fell beast makes that sound and Theoden turns, if he just met it with a gaze of determination instead of, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Which is what... And it's like his hope has given out there.
I mean, he is crushed. He is trapped underneath something.
It's his horse.
Right, his horse. He's not... I mean, it's not like he's not going to stare it to death, is he?
It's the noise, though. The noise happens and he turns. And that's what I object to.
Right.
He looks startled and scared. This is his moment. Even if he dies here,
the Witch King is here on a Gandalf kill streak. He's just screamed at Gandalf and driven the hope out of him. So now he's doing the same
to
Theoden.
Yeah.
And the fell beast completely mauls both Theoden and his horse.
I accept it.
It's bad for them
Eowyn
both.
does well.
Yeah.
She does remarkably well. Probably the best last-minute perfect dodge you'll ever see.
Yeah. Yeah. It is like a Dark Souls boss battle.
Yes.
You can't take this on straight on. You can't really get hit. So how will you win? The one thing I did think, they did her a little bit dirty because in Edoras, she's going through some moves. She's obviously pretty good. And then here she's got like a big helmet on, she's got a massive shield, and she looks like a kid.
Yes.
Just waiting to, I'm going to get you. And I felt like they could have given her a bit more dignity.
They could have made her look a bit more of a badass.
They could have.
Like, I'm sure she must have like a decent set of armor that fits her hidden. Although I'm guessing she's being she's disguising herself as a man so that she can ride in the main host and Theoden doesn't notice her.
She's got a disguised name in the book. I can't remember what it is.
Really?
Yeah. It's like, no, I can't remember what it is. But Mary doesn't know that it's not her for a little while.
Also, interestingly, just a fun little bit of trivia, a lot of the riders of Rohan were women. Just because they put out like a call for excellent riders, and most of the people who replied were women. So a lot of them were just women wearing beards. riding horses. A lot of the riders of Rohan.
That's great.
Just interestingly.
Also, just like how nice, just for anyone, like if you love horse riding and then you get to be
in a film
in the Rohirrim, just what a great few days that must have been. Probably a lot more in a few days, but
they did a great job. I imagine
they did do a great job.
When you're wrangling that many people on horses, That must be a heck of a job. And if one of them is not as good as they said.
Hold there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, good.
on.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Eowyn gets that line. Good line.
It's a good line.
And I always think about the Witch King. Is he like, what? Or like, is it like, I don't think that matters. Oh, God, it does matter. Ah!
Yeah, I'm a bit hazy on how this works.
The rules.
Yeah,
Doesn't
what are
matter.
the rules? What are the rules for the Witch King?
What are the rules?
Yeah, how can you break Gandalf's staff and then
That didn't happen.
you can...
Yeah.
No. And then you're just susceptible to metal in your face?
Well, it's just...
He doesn't even have a face.
Well, maybe if Gandalf had tried metal in the face, maybe we'd be having a different conversation.
Those faces are obviously the weak point because Aragorn throws a burning torch in one of them on the top
true.
of Weathertop.
They're not corporeal, though, are
No.
they? So it's difficult.
So where is the metal going?
I don't know. That's a great...
Right, can we get Elijah back?
He was never here.
Yeah. It's not killed by a man or a woman. It's killed by metal in the face.
There is it reminds
no
me
face.
of, it's got that tang of Macbeth to it, right? There's and that's referenced really specifically in Helm's Deep, Fangorn Forest. You know, like the Woods of Dunsinane?
I've never read Macbeth, I'm afraid.
So at the end of...
Do you not remember how we did on the
Shakespeare
on the
quote quiz?
Sorry, I was
quiz?
looking at your blank faces, but I can't remember how exactly it goes. But it's like the witches trick Macbeth. He says, "And I'm going to be all right, right?" And they're like, "No one will kill Macbeth unless." Oh no man or woman born can kill Macbeth. That's basically what this is kind of a takeoff.
Yes.
And then they say, and you won't lose until the Woods of Dunsinane march to this other place. And he's like, well, fucking woods don't move.
Yes.
I'm going to be fine. And at Helm's Deep, and it's in the extended version, right? The orcs try and run away, and Fangorn Forest is just there.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? So that's a really specific
that's
reference.
a great bit.
And of no woman born is very much.
Yes.
And it turns out that I think that I can't remember who kills Macbeth either. That's terrible. But was basically born by cesarean sections. He's like, wasn't born by a woman.
Clever.
I was born by something else.
Yeah.
I just jumped
Some
out,
doctors.
and now I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
And so it's quite similar to that, isn't it? That's probably what's going on there.
I love the way that the Witch King implodes, though. I'm a big fan of that effect.
When I go, I'd like to implode.
Yeah. I'd prefer that to explode, I think. Although I already want to be dead. I don't want to feel the implosion.
That's true. I wouldn't want to feel the explode. Maybe exploding would feel nice. Like,
A relief.
Yeah.
Pop. And you go.
Yeah.
It's done. Yeah.
Mary has a little go as well, doesn't he? And that's what puts the Witch King on his knees to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mary with a spiteful little backstab.
Whose side are you on?
Yeah.
That was spiteful, wasn't it, Mary?
Yeah.
And I like the way the film still tries at that moment to be like, and it wasn't that simple. Look how much pain that caused Mary to stab the Witch King in the back.
Well, he goes to the houses of healing, doesn't he? He has to be there for a while.
Yeah.
Awful times. Can't just stab a wraith and feel okay about it.
But Eowyn's all right there. She gets her hero moment. Probably another one of the bits you'd have to say.
Yeah.
The removal of the helmet, the declaration, I am no man.
Yeah.
I am no
And
man.
it is a great bit. And of course, we did miss Gimli's line, Rob. Sorry.
Which is, that still only counts as one, which is great.
It is great.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. And I suppose we have now reached the army of the dead arriving.
Yes.
And do they arrive at Osgiliath? That's the river? They come by a boat, right?
No, they've come to the side of the city.
Right.
Yes. So we've already talked about Legolas taking down the Oliphaunt. So we've not talked about it in linear fashion, but yes, the army of the dead arrive, and that's basically that's the end of the battle. Then you just see them a wash of green taking down some Oliphants.
Yeah,
and then the battle was over.
And I guess it is a bit disappointing. I think
it is
only in as much as they are just like a wash of. You know, they don't even fight really. They just sort of move over things and kill them.
I just forgive it. I just forgive
everything. I agree.
Because, again, just talking about how impeccably directed the whole thing is. You always know where you are. There are shots when Legolas is on top of the Oliphaunt. They could have easily made that take up the whole frame. but you can just see in the background. There's you can see riders of Rohan running around. There's like ghosts running around. There's Oliphants in the background. You can see the city in the background. It's incredible, where you're constantly placed and grounded in the action, and how you're able to keep track of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
I've just remembered that Eowyn's disguise name was Dernhelm.
Dernhelm.
I believe so. I think that's what, yeah. And that that moment is in the books also. And it's funny because I think now if that was in a new film.
What moment, sorry?
I am
no man.
I am no man. Oh, I'm glad that's in the books. Is Legolas taking down the Oliphant in the book?
Yeah. He says he surfs down the trunk.
I wish there was an excerpt of Tolkien reading that.
And he slid down as if he was hanging 10 in Hawaii.
And Gimli said to him, that only counts as one still.
Yes, he did. In the books, I've just got to that point. Gimli wins the count in Helm's Deep, just in case anybody was interested. Yeah, he has to protect a single pass, I think, with Aemma, and who doesn't, because it's Erkenbrand who rides in at the end, and because of that he has to kill. But he notches his axe because one of the orcs has got a metal collar, and he's quite upset. But he says it's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Fine.
Right.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that. Like that detail.
I just wanted to stop talking about the Army of the Dead. I just don't like them. I just don't like them, but it's fine.
I don't think there's much to say.
They're gone now, aren't they?
They are gone.
And that's it. Their oath has been fulfilled, and Aragorn releases them.
And I think in general, I found it interesting what a smaller role Aragorn has in this film. I think it's a big, long film. And I feel like, but I do feel like he's, because of going off to get the Army of the Dead, and then he sort of turns up, and the battle is basically won then because of the Army of the Dead. It's kind of
I've already said it, but I think I would have, obviously with massive hindsight, I would have felt there was more substance to what he's doing if it was played up that he's stepping into his inheritance, and that's his character journey. Because he just goes there and he's just a bit handsome and brave, and they're all like, "Oh, we'll follow you into battle." But if it's more about his either hesitation about it or just the meaningfulness of that, then that has a stature to itself. And I think that that's still there in terms of the sort of symbolism of righting the wrongs of a previous battle against the enemy. And that's what the army is there for, and that's why. So it's, I guess, because the thing which sits slightly ill with me about the Army of the Dead, not just about how they're represented, but just how they seem convenient. They're not kind of seeded early on or in a different film or anything. They just seem to be there at that particular moment.
Yes.
And I think all of that might have helped.
Especially because they're right next to where they're mustering. It's like, what's down there? Oh, it's the Army of the Dead.
With no design to get there or anything. It could be anywhere. So these are my minor quibbles, but shut my mouth.
Yes. But the battle is won. And I was also interested in the fact that no one's really sure whether Frodo and Sam are alive, or what yet. Because I just figured in my head, if the ring was found by Sauron, I assumed that it would just be game over and it would be very obvious for everybody.
Sorry, I just forgot my favourite line.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay.
Because what I was going to say was, it's funny that you don't get much happiness at the end of the battle. And then I was thinking, actually, Theoden's the one person who's quite happy.
Yes.
He's under his horse.
Yeah.
And he says, he's just, that line kills me every time. I go to the halls of my fathers, in whose mighty company I shall not now be ashamed.
Yes. And he looks really pleased.
And because he was thinking earlier on, my son's dead. I've been in a coma.
Yeah.
I have fucked it. And now he's thinking, I'm going to Valhalla, baby.
I'd like to face death with that attitude.
Well, you'll be aware that you're about to explode.
That's true.
That's
or
gonna,
implode.
It's going to be difficult for you.
Yeah.
So they have that council where they're like, well, that was great, everybody. And you were like, we've just seen an hour of the most intense action ever committed to film. And then Gandalf's like, we are still in trouble.
Yes.
This is going to be bad.
Yeah.
It's difficult. That's hard.
I mean, this is where the true film ends for me. Like, this is... The Return of the King is the build-up to the Pelennor Fields and the Pelennor Fields, and then it's wind-down time.
Yeah,
everything from here, it's still fine. What's come before is so outstandingly fantastic, in my opinion. That I don't really care what happens in the fight. It's a little bit rushed from here. So they're all standing around.
It's peaked. It's definitely peaked.
They're all standing around deciding what to do. It's like, Gandalf, did you not think of this? Really?
They had no choice.
How do we give Frodo safe passage? Oh yeah, we could just ride out and try and make a diversion.
I love that they've still got tens of thousands of orcs.
Yeah.
They're like, we're still going to lose eventually. We've won this battle because the logistics of how many he could have moved here by this point, but we are still going to lose. And
I also like that the Eye of Sauron is not like a metaphor even. I mean, obviously it's an eye on a tower, but like you see it just looking around. You know, it's like its gaze. It's literally like a spotlight looking around for like,
for some reason,
is there in there?
There's that shot where Sam's like, the eye, get down, Mr. Frodo. And he kind of throws one leg at the end. And I was like, I really want to recreate that with Rob. I want Rob to have to duck from something in a skit.
I'm pretty sure that Frodo, he should be getting seen there for a moment.
I think it would be.
Did I just
the
see
yellow? The yellow sort of like screen indicator would be filling up at that point. But he manages to get behind the scenery just before it turns red.
But there's
the alert goes off.
There's a little question mark over the eye, just for a few minutes. What's happening?
Must have imagined it.
I do think it's a bit silly. I think the Eye of Sauron is a bit silly.
I don't know. I need to reread the book properly. I don't know. They talk about the eye, and it's in the tower. But it's like one of the descriptions made me think it's like there's just a room near the top of the tower and there's a fucking big eye in there. We just don't go in that room. I don't think it's described as being, the visual of it being on top of the tower is incredible. It's great. And it works for the kind of the searching.
Yes.
Is it actually Sauron or is it the Eye of Sauron, as in the mouth of Sauron, which is cut from the theatrical edition?
I love the mouth of Sauron.
Is a different person.
Well,
it's the big mouth.
If there is, have we got time? We've maybe got time. I have a letter from Tolkien that I wanted to read, which is here. I've got two bits, but before that, the mouth of Sauron is one of the bits I wish that they'd kept in. The special effects and the design and conception of it is brilliant. And I love. Have you?
No, I don't think I've seen the extended version of Return of the King.
Rob is definitely the best at describing things from the extended edition, so I'll let him.
What's the mouth of Sauron?
The mouth of Sauron, when they all ride to the Black Gate to try and tempt Sauron's army out of Mordor.
Yeah.
When they open the gate, the first thing that comes out is the mouth of Sauron, who's like I guess, the banner bearer who comes out to parley. And there's a brilliant effect where the person who plays it just has his mouth magnified maybe by 4 or 5 times.
Right.
And he's got he's got a helmet that covers his whole face apart from a hole where his mouth is.
Right.
And he's just got this horrible rotting teeth and he's there just mocking Aragorn and Gandalf. And he brings out Frodo's mithril shirt because obviously the orcs in the tower have stolen the mithril shirt.
Yeah.
And so he's there just taunting Gandalf and Aragorn, saying things like, "Oh, know that he suffered greatly at the hands of his host.
Yeah.
Who would have thought one so small could endure so much pain?"
Oh.
And he did, Gandalf. He did. And Gandalf is crying, and Aragorn ends it just by cutting his head off.
Right.
It's like, I've heard enough out of this arsehole.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't believe it. I will not believe it. He refuses to believe that Frodo's dead.
I like that he kills him. It's not very kingly.
Yeah.
And in a parley. He's played by, and this might help you to imagine it, Bruce Spence, who is the pilot in the Mad Max films. He's been in lots of other Australian. So just imagine him doing this with a massive mouth.
Right, okay.
Because he's got quite a strange mouth anyway.
Yeah.
But just I got tied up, for ages thinking about, I've kind of mentioned this in a couple of the other podcasts, about the corporeality of the beings who are of a different order, the Balrog, the wizards, and Sauron. And there's a letter where he just explains it. So I found it very interesting, and I will just read it to you. I can't remember who it's to. It's a letter to Major R. Bowen, who must have asked a very good question. It says, I note your remarks about Sauron. He was always de-bodied when vanquished. The theory, if one can dignify the modes of the story with such a term, is that he was a spirit, a minor one, but still an angelic spirit. According to the mythology of these things, that means that, though of course a creature, he belonged to the race of intelligent beings that were made before the physical world, and were permitted to assist in their measure in the making of it. Those who became most involved in this work of art, as it was in the first instance, became so engrossed with it that when the creator made it real, that is, gave it the secondary reality subordinate to his own, which we call primary reality, and so in that hierarchy on the same plane with themselves, they desired to enter into it from the beginning of its realization. So it's quite a religious conception of what a pure state of being is, and then the creation of a physical world. They were allowed to do so, and the great among them became the equivalent of the gods of traditional mythologies, but a condition was that they would remain in it until the story, with a capital S, was finished. They were thus in the world, but not of a kind whose essential nature is to be physically incarnate. They were self-incarnated, if they wished, but their incarnate forms were more analogous to our clothes than to our bodies, except that they were more than our clothes, the expression of their desires, moods, wills, and functions. Knowledge of the story, as it was when composed before realization, which is why they have an element of foresight. So there's they've seen the plans that the creator had for the world. Gave them their measure of foreknowledge. The amount varied very much from the fairly complete knowledge of the mind of the creator in this matter possessed by Manwë, the elder king, to that of the lesser spirits who might have been interested only in some subsidiary matter such as trees or birds. Some indirectly through their knowledge of the minds of these bastards. Sauron had been attached to the greatest, Melkor, who ultimately became the inevitable rebel and self-worshipper of mythologies that begin with transcendent unique creator. Olorin had been attached to Manwë. Olorin is the original name for Gandalf.
Right.
And basically he says that, therefore, every time that Sauron gets killed, he sort of makes himself a new body. Except for when the ring is destroyed, he can't do it anymore.
Right.
And that's it. That was all I wanted to say. I was always like, well, does Gandalf know that he's an angel and why does he have this particular body? And that basically answers those questions.
Let me tell you. Incredible that he has all this... this information
just knows
about his world.
Yeah.
Really thought about
someone's got to. Yeah, so that I recommend the letters to anybody. If you just read them, the themes between them aren't connected. They're vaguely chronological. So you just get various sort of insights and ideas about Lord of the Rings all the way through. It's really nice.
It is cool. What a prolific writer.
But before that, we have to deal with the destruction of the ring.
Yes.
Frodo Sam is carrying Frodo.
He is, yeah, like I said, heroic Sam's film. And Gollum is back. He's not dead. And he's not pretending anymore. Pretty clear in his intentions. And Frodo finds the strength to run into Mount Doom.
They do well to climb up the right bit of the mountain, I think, don't they?
100%.
I know, how lucky is that? Maybe not lucky.
It's
maybe
a whole mountain.
Maybe the will, whatever this good will is just subtly guiding them up the right path.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, it's not like Ben Nevis or something where there's like a visitor centre at the bottom. If you'd like to go and visit the forge where the One Ring was made, it's up this way.
Yeah.
They're just literally scrambling up the side of it.
Yeah. No One Rings allowed. If you've got the One Ring with you, they're not allowed in the forge. So that's important. They're banned. And obviously Frodo, he doesn't throw the ring.
No.
Do you think it's a matter of time? As in, like, if he'd got there, a day earlier, would he have had is it a strength thing?
He would never.
Or he could never have.
I do wonder if I was Sam, would you just? Well, there's nothing for
We'll
it.
have to kick you in, Mr. Frodo.
But he wouldn't just push him in. He'd grab him and he'd leap off with him.
Together!
I had exactly the same thought about whether he should or would push him in. And the way I visualised it was, in Stickbold, where you're on the oil rig level and you just push someone off the edge into the sea. It's like that.
Yeah, Frodo puts the ring on. And I don't know what his plan is. I said, I just want it on. I just want it on. I'm going to walk to the tower.
I love this thing so much. Yes.
That's better.
We wanted to do that all film. It's on now. And it's,
I love it.
I also like imagining the panic. You also see it a little bit in Sauron's eye. Oh, shit!
Yeah.
Everyone get over there now! And the Nazgul is, oh, crap, they're fighting the eagles.
Well, it's like...
Everyone's about turn.
It's terrible for Sauron.
Yeah.
Because it's like, as soon as he sees it, and it's right next to the place he doesn't want it to be.
One place.
It's like when you can see on a map on a multiplayer game.
I've been looking for that. the whole time.
And you see, where is it? Where are they got? They've got our flag. Where is it? It's right next to their base.
Yeah.
They're about to score.
Yeah. They're about to win. It's like when, they're on 99 points and they need one more kill.
I know.
And they've just been quietly doing it the whole time.
All the Nazgul rush over.
But lucky Gollum's there.
Gollum's there.
He's
and
there.
He did have a part to play, for good or ill.
He did.
Before
And
this
it's
was
both
over.
good and ill.
Yeah.
Gandalf was right.
I wouldn't want to be bitten by that mouth. Horrible.
He looks so happy.
Yeah.
His teeth are so old.
Yes.
And there's a
Very,
massive,
very strong.
and there's a big gap in the middle where he's just gumming
It
him.
would
He
be
just-
tough to get through a finger, I think. But yeah,
He
does
wants that ring so much.
Yes. And I was also just thinking about just trying to find it on an invisible being. Like, where is the hand?
They're tussling.
Which one did he put it on? Like,
So
but he
good.
manages it.
Just him taking the ring off the detached finger the wrong way.
Yeah.
Off the back end of the finger.
What do you think Frodo's seeing at that point? Because every other time he's put the ring on through the trilogy, he's had like a vision of Sauron looking at him.
I don't know if it's that different because he says he can see. There's no veil between him and the wheel of flame or whatever it is, and he can see him with his naked eye, living eye, whatever he says. It's
Waking
horrible.
eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume,
So maybe it's not that different.
I assume he's walking back. I assume he's just walking to Sauron at that point, just like, I'm coming out. We just know that that's what he's doing necessarily, but he's just, the eye is massive.
The eye is massive. There's weirdly, I saw it popped up, and then I read a letter about it in this book. A story about Tolkien. There was some fan discussion because Tolkien is adamant that Frodo failed, and I think that it's in that way of the internet. It's taken. Everyone was like, "What do you mean he failed? They destroyed the ring." And there's a subtlety which has been lost. You'll be surprised to hear where, again, because of the religious aspect of Tolkien's take on the story, I think that the ring is an object which he's adamant that no mortal person has the capacity to overcome. So that failure of Frodo was inevitable. And you could argue that him getting as far as he did so that then the quest in total could be a success was a form of success. But he's adamant that it's incompatible with his understanding of the universe that Frodo could do anything apart from fail.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It seems pretty cut and dry to me. He walks right in there. He's holding it out over the lava, and then he puts it on his finger. He's failed. Like that.
Yeah, he has failed.
The job wasn't to take it to right into Mount Doom and stand there. It was to drop it in. And of course, like the whole point is that it's an irresistible force that seduces you, that it can't be overcome.
Yeah.
So like he was always doomed to fail.
In the letter where he explains it, he quotes the Lord's Prayer, and he says, "Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil."
Right.
The idea being that there are some things which, I guess it's like almost like a state of grace. You have to acknowledge that there are some things which, if exposed to, we are imperfect beings and will not be able to overcome. So you're saying to God, please deliver me from this evil, because I'm getting right in there.
Yeah. You know me.
I love that.
I love a bit of evil.
And then poor old Gollum.
Yeah.
He falls in.
Is he poor old Gollum? He's got what he wanted.
He's pretty happy.
He
This is
looks
it.
so happy.
does.
He's so happy as he's falling down. And then there's just that one moment of... He doesn't even react to what must be inexplicable pain when he falls into the hottest lava in the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that scene.
Yeah.
I love the writing on the ring.
Yes.
Persisting for just a moment after the ring has...
Just the ring persisting. I like that it sits on the top and we get to see the writing, which obviously we haven't seen since the start of the
Fire
Fellowship.
makes it speak.
And then it's gone. And the tower coming down, Barad-dûr, is one of the best effects, I think, in the film. I thought it was fantastic. I don't know why. It feels like there's a lot of physical effects in there. I assume that there's some miniatures involved, maybe. I thought the collapse of it and the explosion of it was really like breathtakingly good. And the film ends, of course.
They've got it. It's like the Death Star blowing up at the end of Star Wars. The ring has to expire somehow, and it's like it looks really angry and tormented, and it's got to do something. And then the tower collapses, and there is a massive explosion, right? There's got to be a massive explosion.
There's got to be a massive explosion.
And we haven't even talked about Aragorn's last stand for Frodo.
No.
All of that business is pretty good.
That's great. And then Merry and Pippin are the first ones to run in.
Yes.
After Aragorn. Which
And then
I
they
really
get
like
overtaken
as
by
well.
Annoying, but
it's a lovely touch. And then the 58 endings, which, like I've said before, everyone is a baby about the endings. I
agree.
I think you've got to land it. You've got to, and stories aren't just about the peak and the most exciting moment. They're about what happens afterwards. You have that brilliant scene of them in the pub with. I did think about you when I saw the man with the big shiny pumpkin.
Why? Why? What's that got to do with me?
It's only because you've been talking a bit about your friends from home lately,
right.
And I was like, you just get that divide is of the lads who stay at home and the lads who make their way.
Going back to the Shire
wild.
here is like when I go on Facebook and see all my friends from school still living in Taunton.
Yeah, with their
You're
big
still
pumpkins.
here.
And you know what? There's nothing that people do. I go home and I feel bad. People have like stayed here and made it better than it was when I was at school, and I've just gone off, highfalutin.
I explained before, like I was one of those people who was like, "Oh, end the film," like it ends, and I was partly joking. I was partly recalling having watched this in the cinema at midnight. It was a mistake because I was tired, and then after 3 hours or whatever, I really was ready to go home.
Yeah, 3.5.
I
am ready to go.
I am ready to go home. But I do, and watching it this time, I think that all the story that is told needs to be told. The only thing I object to is the fades to black. I don't think they're necessary, and I do think that the fades to black are a weird choice. There's 2 fades to black, which add such an ending note, especially the first one where they're kind of out of Mount Doom and collapse on some rocks, and it fades to black, and then we come back and we're in the same place, and it feels really weird, and I don't know exactly what it's for apart from to suggest some time has passed. Other than to kind of make you think that there's a weird ending there or something.
Maybe it is like turning the page and now we're in the epilogue. Maybe it is like a little bit of a...
I think it is. I think that the fade to black bits are a choice that maybe I wouldn't have made and does make people feel like... Because I think people want all that end. Of course, I want to know... I really want to see them in Minas Tirith. I want to see Aragorn getting crowned. I want to see
so much, isn't there?
Everybody.
There is a lot.
mean, I really I was surprised actually how moved I was by everybody bowing to the hobbits, even though the effect there was a little.
That's a comedy scene for me. I'm afraid I do not. That
really?
Yeah,
I was all for it. I was like, yeah.
The bits that get me, Rohirrim, I was physically fighting with my own tears. That and after Sam and Frodo, when they're on the rock, that scene is so good at giving a sense of I'm so exhausted. I'm happy we've done this, but more than anything, I'm too tired to be happy. I'm too tired to be anything.
Yeah.
And there's that note of satisfaction of a really brilliant summing up of their relationship. I think Frodo just says like, I'm glad I'm here with you, Sam, at the end of all things.
It's a great touch that I don't know if it's a deliberate choice. I think maybe it is, where in the Fellowship of the Ring or the Two Towers, he says, I'm glad you're with me, Samwise Gamgee. And here he says, I'm glad to be with you, which I think is great.
And I think that going back to the Shire, I think is brilliant because you just can't go home. No. And that's the funny thing. And I'm sure this is obviously to do with Tolkien's experiences in the war as well, but as a lot of the book is, but you can't go home, and they can't really. They go home and it's you spend the whole time you're away dreaming of home, and I'm going to get home, I'm going to do this, and remember the taste of this, and the smell of that, and when they get back, it's such an anticlimax for them, and it just can't be. It can't be what they need it to be or want it to be.
100% agree, and I think that the way of showing it, of just 4 of them quietly having a drink is and I've never done anything meaningful really in my life, but we've gone away for a week and done a hard week of work at a show. And at the end of that, we'll be at the airport having a drink. And that's the closest I will get to this. Just like, no one else has been at this show.
Yes.
That was hard.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's very comparable. I also really laughed this time. I noticed...
Gamescom's my burden.
I noticed with Frodo finishing his
I'm going to Gamescom, Sam, alone.
No, Mr. Frodo.
Sorry.
Did you notice? I've never noticed that the last bit of Frodo's book was that Samwise Gamgee was elected mayor of Hobbiton.
Yes, he is though.
They come back and they're
In
leaders.
Sam's film.
They're
He
leaders.
is elected
so
mayor,
funny.
and he gets to marry Rosie.
Yeah.
Well, it is the last line is "I'm back."
That is the last line of the
Right.
book.
Yeah,
Very last line
So
of the
it's
book
you're
and the
not.
last line of the
I think
film.
you're not wrong.
Yeah.
And I was always a bit hazy on why Bilbo and Frodo go to the Undying Lands, but it's to do with the whole ring situation.
I was hazy about Bilbo. I
Because
was like, why is he getting
the
a
ring?
spot?
He had the ring for loads of anyone whose life force has been bound to a ring of power. Their life force now has expired in Middle Earth,
Right.
and that's why everyone who is born a ring has to leave.
They go to Valinor, and it's a bit of a courtesy, I think. So Frodo they're both sort of sent as a reward. Frodo mostly because he's injured and he will have a more comfortable life. His wounds can be better treated in Valinor.
Right.
And Bilbo, I think, again, we've just been reading these letters. Bilbo almost as a courtesy to Frodo because they don't want him to be in this place that he doesn't know on his own.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but also because he has been a ring bearer.
Yeah.
And the 3 elven ring bearers. So the Panickety legend of the ring is that the elven rings were made before the One Ring. So they're not in.
I know that because I've seen the rings.
All
of
the
power.
rings were made before the One Ring.
They
weren't
were.
But they weren't. Yes, but they were hidden from Sauron, so they weren't corrupted or corruptible in the same way. But the power was bound to it because
the Rings of Power's changed that slightly, I think.
Because Anatar had.
So look forward to season
brilliant.
2, guys. Let's go.
But either way, the idea being that there's this separation where they're not. That's why they didn't become ring wraiths. But at the same time, now that the One Ring is destroyed, the rings of those the power of those elven.
Are there
rings
7
will also-
dwarf wraiths out there somewhere?
No,
I was going to say
Sauron has recovered those rings.
Just where are the dwarfs?
Well, they're in the ground.
But why aren't they a part of any of this story?
I
Apart
don't.
from Gimli?
Honestly, I don't really know, and I think dwarves are wicked. I mean, there's loads of them in The Hobbit. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just funny to me. I was really again struck by it at the end of this movie for some reason. I was just like, we've not seen any
Wait
dwarves.
a fucking minute.
All we've seen are dead dwarves and Gimli.
Yeah.
Like, where?
Well,
why
these
are
races
they not
are
part of it?
leaving.
Yes,
Middle-earth.
yes.
It's kind of is the dominion of men.
They are.
The age of men.
They
Because
are.
it's supposed to be this Earth. Middle-earth is this Earth.
It is. In the
We're
middle.
just in a different time.
Ages. Rob, did you say that the sailing away scene was the last scene that they filmed?
It was one of the first scenes they filmed.
What? No.
It was one of Ian McKellen's, I think it was like his 2nd or 3rd day on set. He was filming the departure to the Grey Haven scene.
No, I can't believe that.
And all the hobbits talk about how it was one of the most emotionally exhausting days because they just had to cry all day for about 3 days straight filming that.
I guess they needed Ian Holm. They needed to do all the Ian Holm bits at the start, and then off he went.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get him back. I'm so impressed because I bought into the emotion that they were showing of and I thought, well, if I had
They're
filmed
actors,
this,
Dave.
I know, but I'm impressed because I really thought
Go
how
on the
much they'd be
journey.
able to draw on their experience of this
You would-
amazing experience filming these movies.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be like, should we schedule that for day one?
Yeah.
Peter?
Nice.
Is there
I
any
think,
way we
I
can
think
avoid
the Hobbits
day one?
the Hobbits had spent quite a long time together at this point
Already.
If it was for Ian McKellen, it was one of the
Right.
first scenes he shot. I think for the first 2 or 3 months they were shooting with just the Hobbits because
Right.
Peter Jackson wanted that. He wanted all 4 Hobbits to create this friendship and this bond, and then everyone else started coming in. So it was one of Ian McKellen's first scenes, but the Hobbits I think had already been through quite a lot together.
Right.
Well, here we are at the end of all things.
We are. Yeah. What a journey it's been.
At least we get to watch the Hobbit movies now.
But
There's some
not-
dwarves in there.
But not next week, because
No.
next week it's time for the appendices.
That's
As we said at the beginning of this episode, we're going to do a mailbag special. So we've already had some excellent mailbag about Lord of the Rings.
Loads, to be fair,
there
loads.
is still time, so please do send us an email. It can be about anything, hopefully about Lord of the Rings, but about your experiences watching it, anything, any sort of discussion points, anything, any bits of trivia that you know. There's been loads of really interesting emails, as we've already said. And next episode will be a mailbag special where we will go through as many messages as we can.
We're going to be summing up
respond to them.
Lord of the Rings, but also we've gotten to the end of our first, not quite a full year of making the podcast. So any reflections on the year for anybody out there as well? We'll be doing a bit of that.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That will be nice. But yeah, please do send us a message. Our email address is redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com. And we will see you next week for that before we dive into the Hobbit trilogy afterwards. So yeah, thank you for sticking with us through 3 extra long episodes.
And Merry Christmas if you're listening to this during the week of release.
And Pippin Christmas too.
That was good, Dave.
Thanks.
You've been listening to Red Shirt Cinema Club. If you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just check the link in the description. We'd also love to hear from you. Email us at redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com or follow us on social media. We'll be back with another episode next Monday. See you then.
What a way to end.
What about Pippin Christmas?